Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto trained by Hiashi and Kyuubi for Chunin Exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Sypher and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1, Fallen Angel. The Jonin present saw the intent of the hit, and moved as fast as their training allowed them. Maybe it was the slight hesitation on the part of some, or perhaps it was the underestimation of Niji's speed. But in the end it did not matter as the strike landed hard right over Hinata's heart. Hinata stumbled, falling backwards, blood pouring from her mouth, Kurenai looking on in horror. "Get the medics down here now," Kurenai cried out into the arena, rushing to Hinata's side looking for any sign of life. Kakashi, Guy and Hade held on to Niji, who remained stoic and unmoving, simply staring down at the unmoving body of his cousin. The many genin were in a wide range of emotions, from the amused or apathetic sound and sand ninja to the utter shocked, distraught or furious leaf genin. Kiba was being restrained by Asuma and Choji from leaping the rail and killing Niji where he stood, as Shikamaru was using his shadow to hold back the normally quiet Shino, who had pulled a kunai and also had attempted to leap the rail, trying to end the elder Hyuga's existence. Ino, Sakura and Tenten were emitting a cross between screaming and crying, with Lee yelling about his teammates' unyouthful behavior. The only one not saying anything was Naruto, who remained still transfixed on Hinata's fallen body. He had encouraged her not to give up. He had urged her forward when she should have quit. "It's all my fault," Naruto whispered to no one. The medics carried Hinata away, exchanging grim looks as the extent of the damage done was painfully obvious to the trained eye. By this time Shino had regained his composure but was still flanked by both Shikamaru and Lee just in case. Asuma had to knock Kiba out with a blow to the head and had laid him up against the wall, Akamaru whining by his master's side. Kurenai rose from the floor and turned to see Niji with his usual neutral look across his face. Even after all he had done, there was no remorse or any emotion for that matter. For Niji's part, he had gone over the last few minutes in his head and had reached the only conclusion he could. If she was to die, then fate had decreed it. Fate had decided that she was to die by his hand. It would seem that even the great main branch of the family was not immune to fate. That thought led to the smallest of smiles to cross Niji's lips. It did not go unnoticed. "You son of a bitch," Kurenai screamed, charging Niji. Guy and Kakashi went to stop her, but it was Asuma that appeared before her, holding on as she struggled against him. "Let me go, Asuma! Don't you see the smile on that bastard's face? He has to pay for what he's done," Kurenai screamed, struggling against the grip of her fellow Jonin. "Killing him will not help Hinata," Asuma calmly whispered. "She may still live, and if she does, then she will need her sensei to be there for her, not locked away in the ANBU cells." Kurenai's struggling ceased, and calling on all her power, she assumed a mask of neutrality. In some ways it was more frightening than her previous outburst of rage. Asuma led her to the infirmary, with Shino being allowed to follow. "What do we do, Lord Hokage?" a Chunin proctor whispered to the distressed leader. The third, who was clasping the bridge of his nose with his fingers, let out a long sigh. "There's nothing that we can do, I'm afraid. Even if the girl dies, Niji did not break any rules as far as the Chunin exams are concerned. Hinata did not submit, and Niji had not yet been declared the winner of the match. Technically he did nothing wrong. But if she does die, my lord, there will be a huge backlash from the Hyuga clan," Ibiki whispered. "There is nothing we can do at the moment. If she does not survive, we will have to cross that bridge when we get to it. For now I want Niji Hyuga escorted from the tower, and under guard for his own safety. We should also send for Hiashi in case his daughter takes a turn for the worst." "Very well, my lord, I'll see to it," Ibiki said, signaling two ANBU to his side. "Hawk, I want you to bring Niji Hyuga to headquarters until this mess blows over. I want him under guard at all times, no one is to get to him, understood?" "Yes, sir," the ANBU said, disappearing and reappearing next to Niji, the two of them vanishing in a swirl of leaves. "Rabbit," Ibiki said, turning to his other subordinate, "inform Lord Hiashi Hyuga that his daughter has been gravely injured and she may not have long to live." Rabbit said nothing, just simply bowing and disappearing in another swirl of leaves. Hyuga Mansion. Hiashi stood in his training dojo across from his youngest daughter, Hanabi. Unlike her sister, Hanabi was a true genius in the art of the gentle fist and near prodigy level in her use of the Byakugan. Although his eldest daughter was competing in her first Chunin exams in her rookie year, he was far from impressed. She was too timid and frail to make it far and had no doubt been dragged along by her brutish Inuzuka teammate. He had such high hopes for his eldest child, but had learned long ago she did not have the will to be a powerful ninja or a suitable heir. Hanabi was now the future of the clan, and it was why he now focused all his energy and time forming his new heir for her task at hand. They were about to begin the second part of Hanabi's training when a branch member interrupted. "My apologizes, Lord Hiashi, but an ANBU messenger is here from the Hokage," the servant said, bowing. "ANBU?" Hiashi questioned. "Very well, send him in at once." The servant bowed and left the room. A moment later a tall ANBU in a rabbit mask walked in. Lord Hiashi, the masked man said bowing, your presence is requested at the tower in training area 44. The Forest of Death? What for? Hiashi said, quirking an eyebrow. It regards your daughter, Hinata Hyuga, the ANBU said nervously. What has she done now? Hiashi asked, somewhat annoyed. She has been gravely wounded and she may not have much longer to live. The Hokage has asked that you please hurry, Rabbit said, bowing once again and disappearing in a puff of smoke. Hinata, Hiashi said, shocked. Forest of Death Tower Infirmary. Hiashi and Hanabi both stood over Hinata's bed looking down on her pale form. Hiashi had not wanted Hanabi to see her sister in such a state, but Hanabi had insisted she be there. The doctors had explained that the damage to her heart was irreversible, and within a few hours it would give out from the stress and she would die. Looking down on his daughter's face, he was reminded of her mother when she had died just after giving birth to Hanabi. She had always looked so much like her mother, and in a way it was like watching his wife die all over again. Hanabi looked stoic as ever, trying desperately to hold her composure. She did not like to be seen as weak and she refused to allow others to see that side of her. Hinata's eyes fluttered and she slowly opened them to the harsh white lights of the medical ward. She could feel a sharp pain in her chest and did not remember much of the end of her match. But she knew she had lost, that she was a failure once again. Opening her eyes further, she saw that her father and Hanabi were both by her side. She let out a small squeak of surprise, quickly turning her head in embarrassment. It was then she felt a hand grasp her own. Turning back, she saw Hanabi was holding her hand. Looking at her sister's face, she saw tears. Hanabi, Hinata said, unsure. I'm sorry, Hanabi whimpered, releasing Hinata's hand and wiping her face before running off. Hinata looked up to her father confused, and saw he was giving her a grim look. He was disappointed in her once again. Perhaps she was to be sent to the branch family to be branded, and that was why Hanabi seemed so upset. I have failed you, father, Hinata said solemnly. For that I apologize. Hayashi's heart snapped in that instant as he quickly knelt and embraced his daughter. Hinata was shocked by the sudden show of affection, but even further shocked by the fact that her father was crying, his tears dripping onto her shoulder. No, my daughter, Hayashi sobbed, holding her tighter. It is I who have failed you. For too long I was blinded by foolish pride. I beg you to please forgive me, Hinata. Hinata was nearly too shocked to move, but eventually she returned his embrace and began to cry herself as if a great weight had been lifted off her shoulders. There is nothing to forgive, she said quietly. You are my father and I will always love you. Hayashi released his daughter and regained his composure, still holding her hand. Hinata smiled up at him for the first time since he could ever remember before succumbing to a fit of coughing. Hayashi panicked and began screaming for the medics, who rushed to Hinata's side trying to get her stable. Hinata saw her hands were covered in the blood she was coughing up and looked up to her father to see the same grim look as before. There's something wrong, isn't there? Hinata asked, putting two and two together. Hayashi remained silent. Hinata closed her eyes and breathed deeply. How long do I have? She asked. Hayashi closed his eyes, dropping his arms to his side. A few hours. There is nothing that can be done. I'm sorry, Hinata. Hinata remained quiet, her eyes still closed, the only sound in the room her breathing. Finally, after a few moments to herself, she opened her eyes and looked up to her father. There are some people I wish to speak to, Hinata said calmly. Of course, came the reply. A few minutes later, Team 8 was gathered by Hinata's bedside, trying their best to put up a strong front. Kiba stood still, hoping his anger would prevent him from completely breaking. Shino stood calmly, his emotions hidden by his stoic mask. Kurenai was trying to hold on, but the tears were threatening to fall as she held Hinata's hand. Akamaru was the only one not betraying his emotions as he whined and nuzzled Hinata's free hand as he sat in her lap. Hayashi had informed them of Hinata's condition, much to the shock of her team and sensei, and had excused himself to allow some privacy as well as to speak with the Hokage. The team sat in silence, no one sure really what to say. Eventually Kiba could take it no longer. I swear, Hinata, that bastard will pay for what he's done, Kiba said, slamming his fists together. Shino said nothing but placed a hand on Kiba's shoulder and nodded in agreement. Kiba, I want you and Shino to promise me that you will not do anything that will get yourselves in trouble, Hinata said, looking into both their eyes. Swear to me that you will not let vengeance consume you both. But Hinata, Kiba began. Swear to me, Hinata said, tears dripping down her face. I swear, Kiba said, choked. You have my word, Hinata, Shino said, removing his glasses. I will not break the laws of this village in the name of revenge. But I make no promises if I meet your cousin in the finals, Shino said, replacing his sunglasses. Hinata nodded her head in understanding and turned to her sensei. In many ways she had been a mother for Hinata, and it pained her to see Kurenai with that dead expression on her face. And what about you, sensei? Hinata asked, gripping Kurenai's hand tighter. Kurenai could no longer hold back the flood as she bent down to embrace the girl she considered a daughter. You really are too kind for your own good, Hinata, Kurenai sobbed. I know, sensei, I can't help myself, Hinata said, both laughing and crying. With the Hokage. The third was standing out on the balcony that overlooked the vast forest that surrounded the tower. His ever-present pipe was lit as he contemplated his next course of action. He felt a familiar presence behind him as he blew out another plume of smoke. It seems we have a severe situation, Lord Hiashi. My nephew will be responsible for my daughter's death in a few hours, Lord Hokage. That is hardly what I would call simply severe, Hiashi spat. What are your intentions for the boy? The elder man said, not turning around. He has killed the heir to the clan. If I wished, I could activate his seal and kill him, Hiashi said plainly. Would you, Sarutobi pried? If I did, it would be looked on as cold-blooded murder and would result in perhaps the Branch family having a case to have the seal removed for fear of their lives, Hiashi said, crossing his arms. Niji has acted within the parameters of the Chunin exam rules and he has not done anything wrong from a technical standpoint. A fine explanation and summary, but that does not answer my question, Sarutobi said, putting out his pipe. I would not blame you if took your revenge being a father myself, but as Hokage, such actions might result in a clan civil war. One that could result in one of our most powerful clans devouring itself, and opening the way for our enemies to destroy us. My daughter will be dead in a few hours and you ask that her killer go free when with just the movement of my hand justice can be achieved? Vengeance shall be achieved, Sarutobi corrected. We may bring Niji before a tribunal to hear his case and if need be dispense his punishment, but I cannot allow vigilante justice to decide who is guilty and who is not. But as I have already said, technically he has done nothing wrong. Save your trial and tribunal. I do not wish to waste the village's time, Hiashi said, turning to leave. Please, Lord Hiashi, I know the anger and grief you're feeling, but I won't allow this village to be compromised because of revenge. Niji will be placed under ANBU guard for the time being. If something were to happen to him in the meantime, I would be forced to intervene in clan affairs for the greater good of the village. Do I make myself clear? Of course, Lord Hokage, Hiashi said, leaving. Forest of Death Tower Infirmary. Hiashi returned to the area. Hinata was being kept in a foul mood. How dare the Hokage assume to meddle in clan affairs? Of course, the old man was right. Killing Niji would cause a panic within the branch house. If his own nephew could be killed for what he was sure Niji would claim as an accident, then what about them? He was about to enter Hinata's room when he saw her speaking with the kyuubi child. Though he held no real ill will towards the boy, he felt a boy of his reputation was best kept away from his family. He was rather surprised that Hinata had requested to speak with him in the first place. Curiosity got the best of him as he snuck towards the door to eavesdrop. Naruto stood silently, unsure of what to say. A medic had come out and told him that Hinata had requested his presence down in the infirmary. He arrived and had seen the rest of Team 8 around the girl looking down with Kurenai-sensei crying. He had turned to leave feeling he was intruding when Hinata had noticed him and called him over. Kiba and Shino were not quite sure why Naruto was there, but Kurenai had given him an odd look before ushering the two boys out of the room in order to give them some privacy, much to Hinata's embarrassment, Naruto's confusion, and Kiba's chagrin. They stood in silence for a while with Naruto unsure of what to say and Hinata unable to put words together. Hinata was surprisingly the one to break the ice. They say I'm going to die soon, she said nonchalantly. Naruto's head snapped up and he took a step back as if struck. He saw the resigned look on her face and decided that this was not some sick joke. I'm sure they'll find a way to fix you, Naruto said, unsure of his own words. No, the damage is too great. In a few hours, my heart will give out and I'll die. She said it so calmly that Naruto couldn't believe it. He wouldn't. It isn't true, they just aren't trying hard enough. I'll get those doctors down here and get them working twice as hard, Naruto said, turning to do just that. Please, Hinata said softly. The request froze Naruto in his place as he turned to see her smiling at him with a small but genuine smile. I don't have much time and I wanted to tell you something I should have a long time ago. Naruto paused and stepped forward as Hinata motioned for him to take a seat next to her. He sat and patiently waited for her to begin. Ever since we first entered the academy, I've always admired you, Hinata began. You have? Naruto asked, somewhat bewildered. Yes. I used to follow you to the small training ground you used and watched you train yourself. Even if you didn't have the skills of the others, you never gave up and you never quit. Naruto couldn't help but stare at the girl that he had never truly noticed until her fight with Niji, and now she was telling him she had been following him around since the academy. You were so determined, and no matter what, even if you failed, you still continued to try. I wanted that determination for myself. I wanted your approval. Why didn't you tell me this before? Naruto asked, saddened. I tried to, but I never had the courage to do so. Usually I would get nervous, stutter and babble, or worse, faint. But you're not doing that now. Death has a way of giving a person newfound resolve, Hinata said, showing a small smirk. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said, Naruto began. No, I should be the one to apologize. I didn't have the courage to tell you how I felt, and instead I left you alone. I wish I had known before, if only because I would have had another friend in my life. Another precious person to protect, Naruto said, grasping Hinata's hand. Hinata's hand closed around Naruto's as she basked in this moment, taking it for all it was worth. Looking into his eyes, she smiled before clutching her chest from a sharp pain. Are you okay, Hinata? Naruto said, grabbing her shoulder. Hinata breathed deeply and calmed herself before answering. I'll be fine for now. Naruto, could you please find my team and sister and bring them here? Father should be returning shortly, and I'd like to spend some more time with all of you. Naruto nodded and headed for the door. Hiashi backed away and watched as the young man headed down the hall before being stopped by an ANBU. Naruto Uzumaki, the masked ninja asked. Lord Hokage has sent me to inform you of your placement in the tournament. Your opponent is Niji Hyuga. You will have 1 month to prepare before competing in the finals. Without waiting for a response, the ANBU disappeared, leaving a silent Naruto and an intrigued Hiashi. Hiashi watched as Naruto pulled a kunai from his holster, slashing his hand, squeezing the blood through his fingers. I swear by my blood, Hinata. I will break that bastard for what he's done to you. Hiashi watched as Naruto went in search of Team 8 and his youngest daughter, a plan forming in his head. That boy is the answer to my problem. He shall be an Avenger, a sword of justice, Hiashi muttered to himself. 2 hours later. Team 8, Naruto, Hanabi and Hiashi stood by Hinata's side, sharing old stories and memories of a better time. Soon the pain and coughing fits became too much for Hinata, and the medics gave her medicine to dull the pain as best they could. She was starting to feel tired as she looked up at the faces around her bed and smiled. Please look after those two, Kurinai-sensei, Hinata said quietly to her teacher. You know Kiba can be quite foolish at times and Shino needs to open up more. Kurinai smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Hinata's face, tears once again flowing down her own. Don't forget your promises to me, you two, Hinata said, turning to Kiba and Shino. Take care of one another, and Kurinai-sensei. Kiba hid his face in his sleeve, nodding, with Shino simply nodding his head as well. Hinata turned to Hanabi, who rushed to her sister, hugging her tightly. Hinata stroked her sister's long hair, whispering into her ear. Become strong, Hanabi, and be the great clan head I know you'll be. And please try to smile more, it suits you better than that scowl. Hanabi couldn't help but laugh into her sister's shoulder, releasing her and taking her place next to her father. Hinata's eyes met her father's, and she saw the man she had not seen in years. I love you, father, never forget that, Hinata said weakly. Hiashi bent down and kissed her on her forehead. I will always remember, he said quietly. Naruto watched the scene unfold, feeling almost guilty, as if he were intruding on a moment meant just for them. As if he didn't belong among friends and family, saying goodbye to their sister, daughter, and friend. Hinata looked towards Naruto and held out her hand, which he took ever so gently. No matter what happens, Naruto, promise me you won't change. Promise me you'll continue to be full of hope and give hope to others. Of course I promise. I never go back on my word, it's my ninja way. It's our ninja way, Hinata said, smiling. 30 minutes later, surrounded by those precious to her, Hinata Hyuga, genin of Konoha, daughter, sister, teammate, friend, passed away. Chapter 2, The Aftermath and the Avenger. In order to protect the secrets of the Byakugan, it was a custom for the dead to be cremated and placed inside the clan's mausoleum that stood in a secluded area of the Hyuga estate. The funeral was attended by the clan heads and the other members of the council, as well as the Hokage and the Rookie 9. Kurinai stood surrounded by the genin, who all wore black bands on their arms in mourning. Sakura and Ino had worn theirs around their necks in honor of Hinata. The Hokage spoke, saying that Hinata's death was a tragedy and that the village had lost not only a great ninja, but also a kind heart who had always strove to protect the ones she loved. Hiashi spoke candidly about the loss of a daughter he had taken for granted but had ultimately found in her forgiveness and the unconditional love of a child to their parent. The speeches, while touching and grand, were more or less noise for many gathered there, each trying to deal with the loss of a person some had regarded as family, and those that had never regarded her at all. The service ended with Hinata's remains sealed behind a shimmering slab of white marble, those present dispersing to ponder the aftermath of the passing storm. With Kurinai. Kurinai sat at a small table in the corner of the bar, already on her second bottle of sake. The lighting was low and her black dress hid her in the shadows, which suited her seeing, as she was trying to avoid any and all contact outside of her waitress. The alcohol began to take her back through the memories of when she had first met Hinata. Hiashi had coolly dismissed the girl as a lost cause and a waste of his time. Kurinai was meant to turn Hinata into at least a capable ninja, one who would not bring shame to the mighty house of Hyuga. She remembered the look of shock and embarrassment whenever she had given the girl any praise of her abilities, as if no one ever before had told her she had done well and should be commended. Thinking back on it, no one probably ever had. Pleasant thought melted into anger as that final fight flashed in her mind. The feeling of pride as Hinata stood up for herself, refusing to back down. Only to have that feeling replaced with fear and terror as she saw Hinata receive the death blow on the arena floor herself just a few feet away. Then there was that boy, that killer with the slightest smirk across his face, relishing every moment of her pain. The sake bottle in Kurenai's hand shattered, snapping her from her thoughts. Looking down, she saw a few shards of glass digging into her trembling hand. Great, Kurenai huffed to herself, pulling out the glass and wrapping the wound in a piece of bandage she tore from her wrist wraps. She was about to call the waitress for another bottle when she sensed the presence of someone she defiantly did not feel like talking to right now. You know, normally when you want to get the sake out of the bottle you just pull off the cap, Enko said, sliding into the seat across from Kurenai, grinning. I'm not in the mood, go away, Kurenai, not looking to her friend. Come on, don't be like that. Look, Enko chirped, pulling out 2 sake bottles, I brought reinforcements. Not wanting to argue, Kurenai extended her hand and took one of the bottles. Enko tapped her bottle with Kurenai's and took a few healthy gulps, and much to her surprise watched Kurenai do the same. So, Enko began playing with the bottle. How long is it going to be before you forgive yourself and move on? If this is your idea of trying to help, you're going to need a lot more sake and a few lessons intact, Kurenai sighed, taking another drink. Genin die in the Chunin Exams, Enko said, becoming serious. Between that snake and the sand team we have more bodies than the last 4 Chunin Exams combined. You're not a sensei, you wouldn't understand, Kurenai said dismissively. I've lost comrades and friends to this life the same as you have, Enko said, putting her bottle down. I understand pain better than anyone, so don't act as if your loss is any different. Because Hinata to me was more than just a student, she was like a daughter, Kurenai hissed. When I saw her struck down it was like watching a member of my family murdered before my eyes. Tell me, Enko, you've been an orphan your entire life, what do you know about losing family? Kurenai couldn't stop the words from coming out of her mouth. She just wanted to hurt someone in that moment, and the look on Enko's face was proof enough she had succeeded. Oh God, Enko, I'm so sorry, Kurenai choked, burying her face in her hands. I'm a terrible person. No, Enko said, gently placing a hand on her friend's shoulder. But when I look in your eyes I see something that scares me. It's a look of pure hatred and the all-consuming need for revenge. A need that you would betray your life and all those important to you just to see it carried out. Kurenai looked up and saw the pain and anguish in Enko's face she had not seen since she first reached out to her 6 years earlier. I had that look for years until a young red-eyed Chunin saw me drinking myself away in a bar and sat down to talk some sense into me, Enko said, her ever-present grin on her face. The first and only time you've ever listened to me, Kurenai said, taking another sip from her bottle. To be honest, the only reason I let you even sit down was because I thought you were making a pass at me and I was curious, Enko giggled, sticking out her tongue. Must you ruin everything? Kurenai said, shaking her head but smiling. With Kiba and Shino. Kiba sat on a small hill that overlooked Training Ground 8. Akamaru lay curled in ball, sleeping to the sounds of the stream that cut through the training grounds by his side. This used to be the spot where Team 8 would break for lunch or rest during training. There always seemed to be a cool breeze at the top of the small knoll, and it was a pleasant place to relax. But those days belonged to the old Team 8, whose days it seemed were numbered. Soon they would receive a replacement member, and the Team 8 he knew would be no more. Staring out at the field before him, a creeping and horrible feeling wretched inside his gut. Kiba felt guilty and he couldn't understand why. He had warned her to surrender to Niji if they met in the preliminaries. He had also told her to surrender if she went up against Gaara. Somehow he had the feeling she would have surrendered to Gaara. But she just couldn't bring herself to yield to her cousin. What could he have done? His thoughts were interrupted as his nose caught wind of the familiar smell of Kikaichu bugs. Kiba didn't turn to greet his teammate, instead just staring off into the grass and water of the grounds. Shino walked behind Kiba and joined him in his silent reflection, the sun glinting off his glasses and a slight breeze rustling his hair. Normally Kiba would be rambling on and on about no particular subject to no one in particular, but the somber tone of the day's events had seemed to silence the young Inuzuka, leaving the stoic Abirame to break the ice. I sense that you have a strange feeling of guilt. Why? Because I also share these feelings, Shino said, continuing to overlook the grounds. This caught Kiba's attention, who rose and turned to face Shino. I don't understand why I feel this way. There was nothing I could have done. I warned her not to fight Niji, but in the end she made her choice. So why does it feel as if I've betrayed her? Perhaps it has to do with the way our clans view the world, Shino explained, adjusting his sunglasses. How so? The Inuzuka believe in loyalty and protection of the pack not simply referring to one's own family but extending to mean friends and to a greater extent the village itself. Similarly, the Abirame clan believes in the individual performing for the greater good of the hive. As with the Inuzuka, the hive meaning not only my own family, but all individuals within the village itself. But what does that have to do with Hinata? Kiba asked confused. When was Hinata's fight over? Shino asked quietly. I don't understand your question. Was it over when the fatal blow was struck? Or was it over minutes earlier when her chakra points had been blocked, and she had received a severe injury to her lungs? In between those 2 points either one of us could have interfered on Hinata's behalf and stopped the fight. Why didn't we? Because doing so would possibly humiliate Hinata and would have shattered her already fragile self-esteem. Better that than death, Kiba snarled. We had no idea things would take such an ugly turn. We chose not to interfere because we believed we were doing what was right for Hinata. The truth of the matter is that we cannot predict the future, and supporting Hinata and believing in her was the right course of action. No one could believe that Niji would strike down not only a fellow leaf ninja, but his cousin in cold blood. So it is our fault, Kiba said, turning his back on Shino. We failed her. No, we supported our friend's desire to stand on her own 2 feet against the embodiment of her family's resentment. I would never take that away from her. Kiba said nothing, sitting again in silence watching the sun set over the tree line. Shino remained by his side, realizing that 1, the discussion would have to wait for another time, and 2, forgiveness of oneself was truly the hardest to achieve. With Sakura and Ino, the 2 friends turned rivals turned friends had left the funeral and walked aimlessly through the village. Honestly, either of them had been very good friends with Hinata and barely spoke to her during their academy days. If asked what they liked about the girl, they would probably tell you it was that she didn't seem to like Sasuke. It was that line of thinking that left them sick to their stomachs. What kind of shallow and cold people had they become? For years, ninja life was the life that existed in movies and bedtime stories. Great people doing incredible things and receiving the praise and glory of a grateful nation. Then Sasuke's family, no, his entire clan, was killed in a single night. Then you're forced to kill an enemy ninja for the first time, enjoying sleepless nights or horrible nightmares. Then a girl you barely spoke to in class is struck dead by her cousin right before your eyes. That moment had made it abundantly clear, story time was over. Both knew that if they had not fought each other they would have lost to any of the other ninja during the preliminaries. If they had gone up against the Sand or Sound Genin, there was a good chance they would have been killed. When did we get so weak? Sakura moaned more to herself than Ino. Speak for yourself, forehead, Ino said, her nose in the air. I'm serious, Ino. That could have been one of us lying on that floor, Sakura said, touching her black band. We were the weakest ones left after the second test. Even Hinata could have struck us down just as easily as Niji had done to her. What we need is to get serious, Sakura said, glaring at her friend. The 2 began bickering in the street, not minding their surroundings, and collided with a girl coming from the hospital. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I wasn't watching where I was, Tenten began before freezing. She recognized the 2 girls from the Chunin Exams and noted their black dresses and the black band tied around their necks. Something someone would wear to a funeral, Tenten mentally cringed. Sakura and Ino immediately recognized Tenten and saw the look of fear and regret on her face. No doubt she had believed Hinata had been their good friend when in truth they had probably spoken 3 words between the 2 of them to Hinata through 6 years of the academy. Oh, no need to apologize, Sakura said quickly. It's our fault for arguing and not watching where we were going. Ino and I were actually headed to this little tea shop they say has the best little pastries in the village. Would you like to join us? Tenten was unsure whether to accept or not, seeing as she barely knew these girls or the dubious circumstances they had met under. All protest died as she was dragged along by the duo, sat at a table with a cup of green tea and a plate of indeed, the best little pastries in the village. They sat in a silence that moved from awkward to uncomfortable, until Ino decided to open a dialogue. Were you visiting Lee? Ino asked, noticing she had come from the direction of the hospital. Yes, I was, Tenten said, lowering her eyes. The last few days had been trying to say the least. First she had been pummeled during her preliminary match in a humiliating loss. Then she watched as her teammate killed his cousin only to be whisked away by ANBU to God knows where with Jonin and Genin screaming for his blood. Then she watched as her other teammate was nearly killed as well and was injured so severely that he may never walk again, let alone being able to serve as a ninja. Tenten was so lost in her thoughts she didn't hear Ino's follow-up. I'm sorry, what did you say? Tenten said, shaking the cobwebs free. I asked, how is he doing? Ino asked again. He's stable for now, Tenten said, putting on a small fake smile. As stable as Lee can get, I suppose. The nurses caught him trying to do one-armed push-ups in his room. In his condition? Is he crazy? Sakura asked, shaking her head. It helps when you train with Guy-sensei, Tenten said, shrugging her shoulders. But you can't argue with the results. I know I'm 100 times stronger since I began training under Guy-sensei. Suddenly a light click on in Ino's head. Hey Sakura, what is Team 7's status as of this month? We're off team assignment until after the Chunin exams, Sakura said, sipping her tea. Sasuke is being trained by Kakashi-sensei for the month and Naruto is being assigned a special tutor. It's the same for my team. Shikamaru is being trained by Asuma-sensei for the month with Choji, and I on the reserved genin list. What about you, Tenten? Well, Lee is to be restricted to bed rest for at least 6 weeks, and nobody has seen Niji since the preliminaries. Guy-sensei said he wouldn't train Niji because he broke his promise to him, Tenten explained sadly. That's perfect, Ino said, clasping her hands together, since we're on leave and your team is shelved. Oh, I'm just saying that since we're available, maybe we could get Guy-sensei to give us some extra training for the month, Ino said, rubbing her arm. Well, I could ask, Tenten said, rubbing her chin. Guy-sensei would never pass up the opportunity to train new students. Are you sure you want to go through with his method though? It'll only be for a month, how hard could it be, Ino said, shrugging. Okay then, Tenten said, trying not to smirk, I'll see what I can do. Well, okay then, Ino chirped, holding up her cup, to new friends and new beginnings. To new friends and new beginnings, Sakura and Tenten replied, toasting each other. With Hanabi. Hanabi had spent the day sifting through Hinata's room and trying desperately to piece together who her sister was. All the day had produced was a closet of baggy clothes and a collection of pressed wild flowers. Hanabi thought to track down some of her sister's friends when she realized she didn't know their names. One was an Inuzuka and the other was an Aburame, but aside from that she had nothing to go on. Although they were sisters, they never really spoke to one another. After all, Hanabi had concerned herself with Hinata's affairs about as much as she concerned herself with the affairs of the servants in her home. Hinata was for all intents and purposes a stranger, and the thought that she knew so little about her own sister was maddening. Wondering, she came across the small garden that was right outside her sister's room to think about her current dilemma. The garden itself was peaceful but smaller compared to the lavish grounds of the Hyuga compound. A glade of green grass surrounding a small lake full of koi fish with a stone path leading to a small stone bench surrounded on either side by lavender flowers. She took notice of the large stacks of flowers by the base of the bench, and was about to give a closer look when she saw a young woman from the branch family arrive carrying a bundle of lavender flowers. Hanabi watched as the women approached the bench, kneeling and placing the flowers gently with the others and bowing her head in a silent prayer. Hanabi recognized her as Yuko, a distant cousin, although beyond that she really didn't know the woman. Yuko finished with her respects, rose and turned to leave. Before she was out of sight, curiosity had gotten the better of Hanabi, as she called out to the departing woman. Excuse me, Yuko, but may I speak with you a moment? Hanabi said as regally as she had been trained. Yuko turned, a look of nervous fear on her face before smiling politely and bowing. Forgive me, Lady Hanabi, I did not see you there. How may I be of service? She said, approaching the young girl. I was curious as to why there were so many lavender flowers placed beside that bench. I then saw you also lay flowers as well as seeming to pay your respects to someone, Hanabi said, motioning to the bench. Again a look of fear crossed Yuko's face as well as one of hesitation. She looked to the bench and back to the small girl before her before sighing. I and some of the other members of the branch family have brought these flowers here in honor of your sister. This was her favorite place in the entire compound and lavender flowers were always her favorite as well, Yuko explained. But why do this in secret? Surely father would not object to you placing flowers at her tomb, asked confused. It is not from Lord Hiashi that we keep our actions secret, Yuko said, kneeling to face Hanabi. There are those within the branch family that would frown upon our actions. They are blinded by hate towards the main family and never came to know Hinata as we have, the kind young girl who treated us as family rather than servants. Hanabi's gaze lowered to the floor at those final words. She had treated the branch family with as much indifference as she had Hinata, perhaps even worse. To her these people were not her cousins, aunts or uncles. They were the bodyguards who looked after her when father was away. Or the sentry keeping watch over the compound at night. Even Yuko was only known to her as the woman who tutored her in tea ceremonies. But Hinata had been more to them than just Lady Hinata, daughter of Lord Hiashi. She was their cousin or niece or granddaughter, a member of their family. The bitter realization that her own sister was closer to the branch family instead of her immediate one was a large pill to swallow. But despite her own indifference, Hinata still loved her and had watched over her. She had faith in her and had entrusted that she would look out for the clan, branch family and Maine. The last words of her sister echoing in her head, she rushed forward and hugged Yuko, much to Yuko's and her own surprise. Please, Hanabi said quietly, please tell me about my sister. A sad smile crossed Yuko's lips as she took the young heiress's hand and led her to the small stone bench surrounded by lavender flowers. With Sasuke. Sasuke walked back to the Uchiha district, hands in his pockets and eyes on the ground. He had never really spoken with Hinata during their time at the academy and felt a bit out of place attending her funeral. But he was the last Uchiha and the clan had to be represented, especially with an invitation from the Hyuga clan head himself. Thinking back on his academy days, he could never remember her among the many fangirls who had hounded him day after day. In fact, she never really gave the feeling that she was interested in him at all. She, unlike most of the girls in his class, was quiet and soft-spoken. The only time she said anything was when Iruka had called on her, and even then she spoke in a tone slightly higher than whispering. Sasuke continued his musings until coming to the lake just outside the Uchiha district. It was at this lake he had learned his first fire jutsu and had felt for the first time he had excelled Itachi at something. He looked to the dock that extended into the water and saw a blonde figure garbed in black sitting on the wharf's edge. Having nothing better to do, he made his way down the stone staircase, coming to a halt just behind his teammate. "What are you doing here dead last? Shouldn't you be stuffing your face with noodles right about now?" Sasuke said, smirking. He waited for Naruto to jump up and deliver his usual angry retort, but the reaction he was looking for never came. "I'm not that hungry," Naruto said quietly, not turning around. Sasuke's smirk disappeared to be replaced by a slight look of worry. He had never really talked with Naruto since the preliminaries. He had won his match and had passed out due to exhaustion. He woke up a day later in the hospital and had been told that Hinata had been killed and that he had been invited as a clan head to her funeral. Naruto had said nothing, and all Sakura could tell him was that Naruto had been allowed to speak with Hinata before she had died. Sakura had told him Naruto had been acting strange, but he had brushed it off because Naruto acting strange was nothing new. But the way Naruto was carrying himself was worse than strange. He seemed almost dead inside. Although he could have pried further, he knew Naruto would tell him what was wrong only if he wanted to, so he elected to simply allow this drama to play out. Taking a seat next to his less hyperactive teammate, he took in the sunset as it danced over the water. The comfortable silence lasted quite a while, with Naruto seemingly lost in his own thoughts, and Sasuke either uncaring or unfazed by the lack of conversation. Seeming to have reached a conclusion, Naruto finally spoke up. "Do you remember our mission to Wave?" Naruto asked, still staring across the water. "That wasn't a mission, you just forget," Sasuke said, crossing his arms. "Do you remember anything that happened when you jumped in front of me to shield me from Haku's attack?" "Not really," Sasuke said, closing his eyes. "I remember taking the Saban needles and I blacked out. I woke up to Sakura crushing me and the battle was over." "Did Kakashi-sensei or Sakura tell you anything of what happened when you were out?" "Not really," Sakura said. "The fog obscured her vision so she couldn't see, and Kakashi just kept changing the subject anytime I asked him," Sasuke said, somewhat annoyed. "What happened?" "After you took the hit from me, you had collapsed. I asked why you had done it, and you said you didn't know, that your body just moved on its own. You told me you hated me, and you told me about the man you needed to kill, about your brother." Sasuke's eyes widened as he did not remember telling Naruto about his brother. He turned to see Naruto still looking across the lake. "The last thing you said was for me to not die as well. I thought you were dead, and I had made a promise that I would take up your dream as well and to kill your brother." Sasuke couldn't believe what he was hearing. Why would Naruto go to such lengths for someone who he knew only as a teammate? To promise to kill a man he had never met because it was the dream of a fallen comrade. "Because I saw you as a rival for the longest time and I pushed myself so I could one day overtake you, to have you look at me as an equal. I never had a family, but the idea of me chasing after you seemed to be like a younger brother chasing an older one. A jealousy that one sibling can have for another." The last part struck a chord within Sasuke as he remembered the days of a simpler childhood, when he would bother Itachi to show him something cool or teach him a shuriken trick. The days when he still had his older brother. "I thought that because of that," Naruto continued, "we could understand one another. But I was wrong. You said you were an Avenger and I thought I knew what that meant. I never truly did understand until I watched another precious person die, with me helpless to do anything about it." Naruto rose with the entranced Uchiha standing with him, Sasuke looking at the dead last in a new light. "I swore on my blood I would avenge her, Sasuke," Naruto said, looking at his hand. "I'm going to kill Neji for what he's done." The calm manner in which Naruto said this is what sent a chill up Sasuke's spine. A declaration that should have been boiling over with malice delivered with an icy undertone that would make even Itachi proud. Looking at Naruto now was like looking into a mirror for Sasuke, and for the first time in his life he saw the pain and hatred he hid from the world. Sasuke wanted to say something, but what could he say? The speech he sometimes received that the path of the Avenger was one that led to emptiness, and regret seemed just as foolish coming from his mouth as it did theirs. In truth, a bit of himself wanted to wish Naruto luck and to send him on his way down the path of the Avenger. Sasuke was about to voice his opinion when a hand grasped his shoulder. He looked up to find himself staring straight into Naruto's eyes. "I know that Neji is considered a genius and a prodigy in his clan. I won't fail in taking him down, but I might not make it myself. If that happens, I want you to make me a promise." "What kind of promise?" Sasuke asked hesitantly. "If I die, I don't want my dream to die with me. If I am killed, I want you to promise me that you'll become Hokage in my place." "Why me?" "Because you are everything I'm not. You're beloved by the village and respected. You're a genius too, and you're a leader. You have the ability to become a great Hokage. I love this village and I became a ninja to protect it, but I need to know that I'm leaving it in good hands." Sasuke couldn't help but inwardly smile at the absolute brashness of that statement. Speaking as if he was already Hokage, and he was simply passing the title to him. But the seriousness in Naruto's eyes ended any thoughts that this was just a joke. He was deadly serious, and Sasuke knew he meant it when he said he would forfeit his own life to kill Neji. I can't give you an answer now. I'll tell you my decision when I'm back from training with Kakashi, Sasuke said, walking back towards the stairs. Naruto gave no reply and took his seat again on the dock as Sasuke disappeared over the hill. His peace disrupted as a man with white eyes, wearing a flak jacket and a bandana-style forehead protector appeared before him. Naruto Uzumaki? The man asked, Naruto simply nodding in the affirmative. My name is Ko, Lord Hiashi wishes to speak with you. Naruto said nothing as he stood. Ko put a hand on his shoulder, and in a swirl of leaves the two were gone. Chapter 3. Prepare yourself. Naruto was led through the white stone courtyard that sat in the center of the Hyuga compound leading to their family dojo. Looking around, he was somewhat shocked by how plain the mansion was, as he always felt a family like the Hyugas lived in the true decadence reserved for royalty. Naruto's escort led him to the family dojo, which was large but left mostly undecorated. At the head of the dojo was the Hyuga clan crest carved into the fine cedar that walled the room. On the opposite wall was a shrine dedicated to those members of the Hyuga clan that had fallen in battle. In a large block of white granite was carved the many names of fallen Hyuga, a stone that reminded Naruto of the memorial stone that stood next to Training Ground 7. He studied the names before resting his eyes on the last name, Hinata Hyuga. Naruto raised his hand, gliding his fingers across the name, closing his eyes. It seemed strange to feel such loss over someone he truly didn't know. To him, Hinata had been the strange girl in class who sat in the corner and kept to herself. Her shy and quiet demeanor was often mistaken as cool indifference by the other children, and he had often seen her eating alone. The more he discovered about her, the more he saw a kindred spirit. One who was ostracized for no fault of their own, but was determined to prove those who looked down on her wrong. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by the approach of Hiashi and Hanabi Hyuga, two people he had met mere days ago, and only due to him being summoned to stand by Hinata in her final hours. Now he had been called to the Hyuga compound and was to speak with the clan head. Had he not been so close to the Hokage, the thought of meeting such a powerful village leader might have been intimidating. Lord Hiashi, Lady Hanabi, Naruto said, bowing, mentally thanking Irika-sensei for those seemingly useless etiquette lessons all those years ago. Hiashi returned the gesture with a slight nod, with Hanabi returning the bow. Hiashi, looking the boy over, was rather surprised that this was the infamous Naruto Uzumaki. The child who had defaced the Hokage monument, and had Anbu chasing after him for an entire morning. The boy who was said to be brash, loud, rude, and unable to sit still. Perhaps Hinata's death was a greater blow to the boy than I realized, Hiashi thought to himself. Hiashi approached Naruto, arms behind his back, standing alongside him by the memorial. Staring at his daughter's name, the inquisition began. Tell me, young Uzumaki, what are your intentions for my nephew? Hiashi asked, not turning from the stone. I'm going to fight him in the finals and kill him, Naruto said calmly. The surprise Hiashi held did not reach his face, as he was somewhat taken aback by the rather straightforward answer. Dealing with clan and village politics for so long, it was strange to deal with the childlike and brutal honesty Naruto possessed. I see, Hiashi said, now eyeing the boy. I know he's your nephew, but I swore an oath that I would avenge Hinata by delivering justice to her killer, Naruto said, looking into Hayashi's eyes. Hiashi returned the gaze and saw in Naruto's eyes all the determination, malice, and hatred coursing through his body. He was perfect. Hanabi, you may leave us for now, Hiashi said, motioning to his daughter. Hanabi bowed and left, closing the dojo door behind her. Hiashi then made a series of hand signs and pressed his palm against the walls, causing them to glow a bright blue that gradually faded. This dojo is equipped with a security seal that prevents outsiders from seeing or hearing what is happening inside. It is meant to protect our clan's most power technique from spies, but it will allow us some privacy in what I am about to offer, Hiashi said, removing his hands from the wall. And what are you offering? Naruto asked warily. Assistance in your quest for justice, Hiashi said, crossing his arms. Naruto said nothing but simply nodded for Hiashi to continue. I could with but a single hand sign kill Neji where he stands. Neji is a member of the branch family, Hiashi explained, and all members of the branch family are given a seal on their foreheads that allow the main family a certain amount of control over the branch family members. Though its main purpose is to protect the secrets of the Byakugan upon their deaths, it can also be used to inflict a great deal of pain against the wearer, and if need be, death. So why don't you? Naruto questioned. Technically, Neji did not break the rules of the Chunin Exams. Though killing is frowned upon, it is a part of the exams. If I were to strike down Neji, it would cause a great rift in our clan. The branch family would seek asylum from the council or the Hokage, or even worse, they might attempt a coup against the main family. Such a civil war in the village's most powerful clan would be disastrous, inviting our enemies to strike against Konoha and trigger a new war. Naruto nodded in understanding. Though he wasn't really clear on the interworking of clan politics, he did understand war, and what it would entail. But if I kill Neji in the Chunin exams just like he did Hinata, technically I haven't done anything wrong and justice can be carried out without the need for a backlash, Naruto reasoned. You are correct, young Uzumaki, Hiashi said smirking. Although I cannot teach you our clan's techniques, I can offer two services. One is training in fighting against the gentle fist style which Neji is considered a prodigy in. The second is the tutoring of one of the finest ninjas this village has ever produced. The second offer was what caught Naruto's interest. A sparring partner was fine and all, but a private tutor who happened to be a powerful ninja was a dream come true. I must warn you, Hiashi said, snapping Naruto from his daydream, if you succeed and justice is carried out, no one may know of my involvement. If it were known I had assisted you, then the branch family would react the same as if I had struck Neji down myself. The other thing you must realize is that by killing Neji, the Hyuga clan and especially the branch family will carry nothing except disdain for you for the rest of your life. Are you prepared for such an ordeal? Hiashi said, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I'm used to being viewed with looks of hate and contempt. I'll deal with it. Very well, Hiashi said, releasing the privacy seal. Your training shall begin tomorrow. Meet me at Training Ground 26 at 8 in the morning. It is a private field that only the main family is allowed to use. Naruto bowed and left quickly, eager to begin his new training. ANBU headquarters. As Naruto and Hiashi were concluding their talks, Neji had just laid down in his cell at ANBU headquarters. Though he wasn't a prisoner per se, the cells were the only place where a bed was available to him. He had been trapped here after the preliminaries when he had struck Hinata down and had her teammates and sensei calling for his head. It had been 3 days and he was still not allowed to leave, supposedly for his own protection. He still scoffed at the special treatment offered to the main family, with nearly every jonin in the arena rushing to Hinata's aid. No doubt she had the best doctors in the 5 nations caring for her as he sat here. He wouldn't be surprised if they had brought back Tsunade of the Sannin to personally care for his cousin. Neji's bitter thoughts were interrupted as an ANBU approached with 2 members of the branch family. He recognized them immediately as Goro, the branch family elder, and his great-uncle, as well as his grandson Jiro, a second cousin to Neji, who had been named the head of the branch family after the death of Neji's father. The ANBU spoke with Goro before leaving the two to talk. I expect Lord Hiashi has sent you to retrieve me for my punishment, Neji said, rising. No, Neji. In fact, Hiashi does not know we are even here or what our purpose is, Goro said, a grim expression on his face. I do not understand. Tell me, Neji, has anyone told you about what has happened since the preliminaries? Jiro inquired. I have been told nothing, Neji said, shaking his head. I was told I must stay here for my own protection and was not to leave under any circumstances. I see, Jiro said, looking to Goro. This morning Neji, Hinata Hyuga's remains were buried in the family mausoleum. She had died 2 days earlier from injuries sustained at the Chunin exams, Goro explained. Neji's eyes widened as a million questions bombarded his mind. How is that possible? Her injuries could not have been that severe, could they? Why has Hiashi not activated my seal? Are they here simple to escort me to my execution? Of the many questions he asked himself, one stood out against all the others. What have I done? Goro placed a hand on Neji's shoulder, bringing him back from his thoughts. You should know that your life is not in any immediate danger. Hiashi knows that Hinata's death was within the rules of the Chunin exams, and that killing you in revenge would be seen as cold-blooded murder. Neji, still shocked, could only nod his understanding of the situation before Goro continued. However, our spies within the compound have heard he intends to train your opponent for the Chunin exam finals, the boy known as Naruto Uzumaki. He no doubt intends to use the boy as a weapon against you, Goro concluded. Uzumaki, that fool who was encouraging Hinata to continue on, Neji thought. He is of no concern. He is a failure as a ninja and stands no chance against me, Neji said, regaining some of his bravado. That may be true now, but there is no telling what exactly Hiashi will teach this boy. Therefore we have taken it upon ourselves to keep you safe and to teach you as many of the main family's techniques as we can, Jiro said, smirking. How were you able to learn these techniques in the first place? Neji questioned. They are a closely guarded secret. The main family's arrogance will be their undoing, Goro laughed. They train in secret, but we share the field of battle with them. Did they believe we would be incapable of studying their movements and learn the secrets on our own? I myself had learned dozens of their so-called secret techniques during the Third Shinobi War. Neji stood silent, trying to put together everything that had transpired up until this point. You are taking a great risk coming here and training me in the main family's most guarded secrets. Why? It is because you are viewed as a hero among many within the branch family. You cut down the air, proving that the strongest members of the clan do not reside within the main family. You have defied the fate of the branch family to protect the main, and have given us a chance to overthrow those who would make us servants in our own home, Goro sneered. Your father would be proud of you, Niji. Niji had thought back to the day he had lost his father to fate and had begun to believe that everything happened for a purpose, preordained and unavoidable. If that was true, then fate, it seems, was indeed on his side. For the first time in his life, the scales of justice were in his favor, and he would carry out the task fate had given him. When do we leave? Niji asked. The next day, training ground 9, 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning? That was the ungodly hour that Sakura and Ino were to report to training ground 9 to begin training with their temporary new sensei. Having gotten used to the nonchalant Asuma and the always tardy Kakashi, Ino and Sakura were amazed to find their new sensei doing handstand push-ups and discovering that he had been there since 5 in the morning doing them. Tenten arrived just after her new teammates to see them staring mouths agape and giggled as they were learning just how much Guy-sensei enjoyed training. Guy broke his push-ups, disappearing and reappearing in a flash before the 3 kunoichi, causing the blonde and pink-haired ones to scream and fall backwards and the brunette to smile and wave a greeting to her teacher. Ah, these must be my new youthful students, Ino and Sakura, Guy bellowed, much to the dismay of Ino and Sakura. It warms my heart to know that such fires of youth burn brightly in my fellow Jonin instructor's students. Thank you, Guy-sensei. Sakura and I are very eager to become stronger ninja through your training, Ino said, nudging Sakura. Oh yes, we realized that we needed to improve our skills in order to keep up with our fellow genin, Sakura explained. Such dedication is wonderful to see in such young genin. It makes me feel proud to know that the true fires of youth burn brighter in every generation, tears of joy streaming down his face. Both Sakura and Ino turned for help from Tenten, who only shrugged and began stretching. Sakura and Ino followed Tenten's lead and began stretching as well, Guy simple ranting on about youth, fire and any combination of the two. Once done, Sakura and Ino prepared for whatever training awaited them when Guy tossed each girl a set of 4 metal bands. Both girls looked the bands over, seeing they were lightweight and made from strong steel. Looking over at Tenten, they noticed that she also had the same kind of bands on her wrists and ankles. These bands, Guy explained, are chakra weights. They are to be worn on your wrists and ankles as Tenten has here. They will give the resistance of a set weight by simply adding a small amount of chakra to them. Right now I would like you to put them on and give each one a weight of 10 pounds. Simply input chakra into the bands, and you'll see a number appear. Continue adding chakra until it reaches 10. Both girls did as they were told and watched as a blue number appeared on the band, counting up towards 10. The extra weight was very noticeable, with both Sakura and Ino struggling to stand up straight. These things weigh a ton, Ino whined. How are we supposed to move like this? Sakura seconded. An excellent question, my youthful replacement student, Guy shouted, pointing a finger in the air. The bands work twofold. One, the physical training your body receives from carrying the extra weight, and secondly, it works as a chakra building exercise. How so, Guy-sensei? Sakura asked. By using chakra to help strengthen your limbs during our exercises, you build your own reserves and increase your chakra control by having to channel chakra to specific parts of your body, Guy explained. I am starting you both off light so you can easily adjust to the weight. In time, as you become more comfortable, the weight can be increased. This is light, Ino screeched, and turning to Tenten. How do you manage to carry 40 pounds around with no problems? Actually, I haven't carried that much weight since I started training under Guy-sensei. Now I carry 25 pounds on each band, Tenten said matter-of-factly. But that's 100 pounds of weight, Ino said, shocked. Yeah, and I only weigh 90 pounds, Tenten said, smiling. Ino looked Tenten over and then at herself. Even with 10 more pounds, Tenten was still skinnier than her. I don't like you anymore, huffed Ino, much to Tenten's and Sakura's amusement. Now that explanations are out of the way, we'll begin our morning exercises. Since you two are unfamiliar with our usual regime, we'll go a little light today. 200 laps around Konoha, 200 sit-ups, 200 push-ups and 200 pull-ups, Guy shouted, breaking off to start the laps. That is light, Ino said, eyes bulging. Normally we do 3 times that many, Tenten said, rather happy with the reduced workout. Ino turned to Sakura only to find she was already running ahead. Come on, Ino, the springtime of youth waits for no one, Sakura yelled, sticking out her tongue. That's the spirit, Sakura. In honor of your youthfulness, I shall run 200 additional laps around Konoha, Guy yelled back through the forest. You people are crazy, Ino screeched. Training ground 26, 8 in the morning. Naruto arrived early at the grounds to find the entire area closed off by an enormous fence. The crest of the Hyuga clan hung over the gate leading into the grounds, and Naruto could see a blood seal that was carved into the door. Hiashi arrived a few minutes later with Hanabi by his side. Naruto again bowed to the elder and younger Hyuga, receiving the same greeting as before. Hiashi bit his thumb and ran some blood over the seal, activating it in a flash of blue. The door opened and Naruto was ushered inside. The grounds themselves were nothing special. In fact, it was rather barren as training grounds went. A large field, devoid of trees and very flat, surrounded by forest, designed so the Hyuga could practice their more dangerous offensive and defensive techniques in an open setting. Hiashi led Naruto and Hanabi to the center of the field to begin his assessment. To begin with, Uzumaki, what do you know of my clan's fighting style? Well, I know that you use your Byakugan to see your opponent's chakra points, and using chakra in your attacks can shut those points down and damage internal organs, Naruto said, squinting. That is correct, however the Byakugan has many more abilities than just sensing the chakra network, Hiashi said, crossing his arms. The Byakugan is able to see in a 360-degree field of vision. When activated, a user is capable of seeing an attack coming from all directions, including from the sky and below the earth. Therefore, close combat is not recommended when facing a Hyuga in battle, Hiashi surmised. This was a problem, and Naruto knew it. He knew no long-range attacks, and his one true trump card, the Shadow Clone Jutsu, would do very little against an opponent like Neji other than simply trying to wear him down. I see by your expression that you are a close combat fighter and the problem your opponent presents you, Hiashi noted. But that is why we are here. True, the Hyuga clan's gentle fist is formidable, but familiarizing yourself with it shall help you learn to find a counter using your current skills. It will also be good training for Hanabi to practice her abilities against a real opponent who does not employ the gentle fist, Hiashi said, motioning to her daughter. I'll be fighting Hanabi, Naruto questioned. Do not underestimate her simply because of her age, young Uzumaki. She is already at a genin level of skill and was able to defeat Hinata in every sparring session they had, Hiashi said, placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Hanabi, for her part, kept a look of neutrality on her face, but inside was rather annoyed to be looked upon as some little girl despite in fact being one. You both shall spar until one of you is incapacitated. No weapons are allowed, Hiashi said, laying down the ground rules. You may begin on my mark, Hiashi said, heading for the edge of the field. The two faced off in the middle of the grounds with Hiashi standing near the forest edge, Byakugan activated and overlooking the two combatants. Naruto got into a basic defensive stance he had learned at the academy, while Hanabi slid into the stance he had seen Hinata take during the preliminaries. Hanabi activated her Byakugan and waited for the signal. Begin, Hiashi called out, and in a flash Naruto was bearing down on her. Hanabi grinned as she saw him charge straight forward, swinging a right hook towards her cheek. Hanabi ducked and used Naruto's momentum to spin him around, but had to dodge a left elbow he let fly at her face. Backpedaling, she blocked a heel kick aimed at her stomach and went for a sweep of his exposed leg. Pivoting, Naruto spun himself away from her and landed in a crouch, immediately recovering and launching himself again at Hanabi in a flurry of punches. Hanabi swatted the haymakers aside and, seeing her opening, aimed for a spot just above Naruto's elbow. Seeing Hanabi had broken his guard, Naruto shifted, taking the surgical strike to the forearm, leaping away using a swift kick to mask his escape. Hiashi observed the entire exchange, noting his daughter would have to train at a much faster rate of speed next time as she seemed used to the full pace of actual combat. The other was the awful form Naruto displayed as a fighter. The boy seemed to have the finesse of a raging bull as he clumsily let fly blow after blow. The one positive to note was, while an unbalanced, undisciplined fighter, the boy's strength was so great that if he had connected with any hit, the fight would indeed be over. Naruto flexed his arm, which while sore still moved, meaning she had missed. Hanabi again fell into her stance, this time prepared for the speed with which the assault would come. She had underestimated his speed and strength, but his style was sloppy, and if he tried again she would make him pay for the many openings he left in his guard. Naruto, for his part, did not charge ahead once again, but instead made a tiger seal and shouted his technique. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto yelled, and in a puff of smoke 6 new Narutos now accompanied the original. Hanabi dropped into a more defensive stance as the clones and originals surrounded her. She was somewhat dismayed that she could not find the original within the group, since each had an equal amount of chakra flowing through them. She was not very familiar with this technique, but knew that these were not simple illusions. All right, let's do this, the squad of Narutos cried out as one. 2 Narutos came rushing in on either side, one aiming a fist at Hanabi's eye temple, and the other leaping in with a hard kick to the kidney. Hanabi caught the fist aimed for her head and pulled the Naruto towards her, delivering a hard elbow to his face, dispersing the clone in a puff of smoke. She dodged the kick from the second Naruto and struck it just above the neck with a sharp stab of her fingers. That Naruto choked and fell backwards, also vanishing in a cloud of smoke. 2 more ran forward while a third charged in from behind. Hanabi did a back flip, catching the 2 Narutos under the chin with her feet, dispelling them. She then caught the third with her legs around the neck, throwing him forward, crashing into the real Naruto, dispelling one, and sending the original sprawling to the ground. Before he could get back into a defensive stance, Hanabi had closed the distance between them and struck a chakra point on Naruto's shoulder. She followed it up with a strike to his thigh, bringing him to one knee, and a second strike to his other shoulder, rendering both of his arms useless. Grabbing him by the collar, she raised her hand for a final strike before offering her ultimatum. Surrender or suffer the consequences, Hanabi said, unable to hide her triumphant smirk. Naruto opened one eye and smiled before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Hanabi went to step back when she felt her legs suddenly grabbed. She looked down to see two Narutos latched onto her ankles. She went to punch them when a puff of smoke revealed two more Narutos who latched onto her arms, rendering her immobile. Hanabi was frantically searching around for another Naruto when a stone in front of her puffed out of existence, revealing a grinning Naruto. He had disguised himself and more clones as rocks while I was busy fending off his attacks, Hanabi thought to herself. Surrender or suffer the consequences, Naruto said, still grinning. No, Hanabi said defiantly. Very well then, the original Naruto said, charging forward, fist clocked back. Hanabi closed her eyes, waiting for the strike, only to feel a poke on the end of her nose. Slowly she opened her eyes to see Naruto's fist just inches from her face, a single finger extended, poking her in the nose. I win this round, Miss Hyuga, Naruto said, smiling. Hanabi for her part was too shocked and embarrassed to respond, her cheeks reddening as she stood there fidgeting, looking very much like her sister. Embarrassment turned to anger as she crossed her arms and stuck her chin out, pouting over her humiliation. It would seem that both of you have a lot of work to do, Hiashi said, walking over. While you were victorious, Naruto, a fighter of Niji's skill would have disabled you during your first attack. Your style is rudimentary and full of holes. Shadow clones will have little effect in truly stopping my nephew, which is why the tutor I am arranging for you will be so important. Naruto eagerly nodded at the prospect of his new tutor teaching him all sorts of cool techniques. Currently I have someone looking for him, as he was seen arriving at the gates just a few days ago. Hopefully he will meet us here for tomorrow's session. Until then you are free to do as you wish. Naruto bowed and headed for Ichiraku for lunch, and then to Training Ground 7 for his own private training. Meanwhile at the Kona Hot Springs, Ko Hyuga stood on the street that was directly behind the women's section of the hot springs. He knew the target he was supposed to find would more than likely be here, and if not, there was always the falls where many of the civilian women liked to frequent. That he had heard, of course. Activating his Byakugan, he spotted the hidden man sitting in a tree that overlooked the springs. If not for the occasional giggle, he would have been completely unnoticeable. Ko shook his head and approached the tree, stopping below it and looking up. Lord Jiraiya, if you could please come down from there. Lord Hiashi wishes to speak with you, Ko said, shaking his head. Not so loud, you fool, you'll scare away all the bathing beauties, Jiraiya whispered back, giggling and scribbling in a black notebook. Ko sighed before taking in a deep breath and screaming, Hey, you there in the tree, stop trying to peek on the women in the hot springs, pervert. Shrieks and splashes could be heard which accompanied the rocks and bars of soap that were hurled into the tree, causing the Sannin to lose his footing and fall head first to the ground. Leave it to a Hyuga to take all the fun out of life, Jiraiya said, dusting himself off. So what exactly does Lord Hiashi need from little old me? He requires your assistance in training a young genin for the finals, Ko explained. And why would I do that? Jiraiya snorted. I don't just take on students just because, only those worthy of learning from mighty Jiraiya Toad Sage and one of the legendary three, he said, striking a dual fan pose. Lord Hiashi said you might say that, and he said for two very good reasons, Ko said, holding up two fingers. One was something about you owning him a great debt for some infraction against him. At that, Jiraiya paled as he remembered being caught by a young Hiashi, as he was accidentally caught peeping on several Hyuga women, including Hayashi's wife. The other, Ko continued, is that you would be very interested in the genin being trained. And why would I be interested in a young Hyuga? Jiraiya asked, unimpressed. Not a young Hyuga, a young Uzumaki. Jiraiya's face changed from bored to serious as he put his book away and gathered his large scroll. Let's go have a talk with Lord Hiashi. I'm sure this will be interesting. Chapter 4, Knowledge is Power. Naruto pushed aside the flap to Ichiraku ramen only to be greeted by the sight of Ano and Sakura both inhaling ramen with 4 empty bowls already stacked in front of them, much to Tuchi's approval and Ayam's dismay. Naruto could only pause, stepping outside to make sure this was indeed Ichiraku. Assured this was in fact his favorite restaurant in all of Konoha, stepped inside and sitting on a stool next to the two unaware kunoichi. Hey there, Sakura, Ino hungry? Naruto asked, staring at the carnage before him. The girls stopped and turned to the boy they had not even seen come in, both of their mouths full of noodles, the realization of what they were doing causing a blush to encase their faces. What are you staring at, Naruto? Ino snapped, trying to maintain as much dignity as possible. Haven't you ever seen anyone eat ramen before? Sure I have, it's just I don't remember either you or Sakura ever liking ramen, Naruto said, scratching his head. Aren't you two on a diet or something anyways? We were until we started training with Guy-sensei this morning, Sakura said in between bites. But after that torture, if I didn't eat something I think I was going to die. You guys are training with Guy-sensei? Naruto asked, surprised. Yeah, we decided we needed more training, ever since the funeral, Ino said, trailing off, seeing Naruto's shoulders droop at the mention of the funeral. Sakura had told her that Naruto had taken Hinata's death badly, though she couldn't for the life of her remember them being very close at the academy. Though everyone had known of Hinata's crush on the boy, he himself had seemed clueless to it. Had he known after all? Ino was shook from her musings by Naruto's waving hand. "Hey Ino, you okay?" Naruto said, hand flashing in her face. "Huh," Ino said, shaking her head. "I was asking about your training. What is Guy-sensei teaching you?" "What that maniac is teaching us is how to work our bones into dust," Ino shouted. "Still," Sakura sighed, "we defiantly will get stronger if we keep up with his training. Guy-sensei's methods may seem tough and a little strange, but I already feel much stronger," Sakura said, cracking her knuckles. "Just don't start getting too wrapped up in the springtime of youth, or else Guy-sensei will get you a green spandex suit to match his," Ino huffed. The thought of Sakura in green spandex was too much for Naruto, who nearly fell out of his stool laughing, which in turn led to Ino also laughing, much to Sakura's annoyance. Normally she might have clocked Naruto in the head for laughing at her, but it had been so long since she had seen him actually happy. Swallowing her pride, she joined in the fun, suggesting Ino would soon begin growing very bushy blonde eyebrows. That earned another round of Naruto's infectious laughter and Ino's screams of indignation. Just outside the ramen stand, a young jonin who had been waiting on her date was listening in on the entire conversation. A small smirk crossed her lips, as she always approved when young female ninjas took their craft seriously. It would seem Hinata's death had been a wake-up call for them, and they had decided to not only seek out additional training, but from Guy no less. Kurenai closed her eyes, trying to remember the files she had received on the two when they were in the academy. Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno both had finished top of their class in skill and intelligence respectively. From the limited conversation she had had with Kakashi, Sakura had excellent chakra control and was originally classified as a genjutsu-type ninja. Asuma had said Ino was the top-ranked girl in her class as far as skill and stamina, was fiercely competitive with very good chakra control necessary for her family's own jutsu. Both might be very proficient in genjutsu, especially Sakura. With the right training they could quickly become top kunoichi of the village. With Shino training with his father, and Kiba training with his mother and sister, Team 8 had been placed on the reserve list until a new member could be found to replace Hinata. Kurenai's hand balled into a fist at the very thought of replacing Hinata, but let her anger subside as a plan began to form in her head. She needed to keep her mind and time occupied, and if these two were willing, she would try to pass some of her skills on to them. Even though she was one of the best if not the best genjutsu users in the village, her team was made up of clan members who didn't use genjutsu like the Inuzuka and Abirame, or felt they didn't need such deception, like the Hyuga. Sakura, on the other hand, wasn't a part of any clan, and the Yamanaka's mind techniques were a variation on her own craft. Training these two would not only clear her head, but get her focused on other things. Her mind made up, she disappeared in a swirl of leaves to got meet with a different Sarutobi. Meanwhile, with Jiraiya was led to a large garden located in the heart of the Hyuga compound. His escort had left him, and he had not seen anyone else the entire time. What a shame, he thought, thinking of the many curvy Hyuga women that had to be somewhere hidden inside the compound. A small giggle escaped him as he leaned against the compound wall, lost in perverse thought. Ahem, a stern voice muttered as Jiraiya opened his eyes. Hiashi stood regal as always, arms behind his back, looking on his guest with a mix of irritation and disgust. "Lord Jiraiya," Hiashi said, emotionless with the slightest of nods. "Lord Hiashi," Jiraiya said, bowing obnoxiously low. "I've just been made aware that you've taken on a rather interesting student." "I am merely allowing the boy a sparring partner in preparation for his match in the finals," Hiashi said dismissively. "Of course," Jiraiya said, walking over to his host. "According to that fellow Ko, you need my help to train this boy. He is unworthy and unable to learn the techniques of my clan. Beyond gaining familiarity with our style, there is little the boy will learn from what I am able to teach him." "So why me?" Jiraiya asked, bored. "You are a legend and have instructed legends in the ways of the shinobi," Hiashi said with the slightest displeasure at praising the lech. "He will learn much from a master such as you, and I wish for him to become powerful enough to defeat his opponent in the finals at the Chunin Exams." "And who is his opponent exactly?" Jiraiya asked, knowing full well the answer. The Hokage had filled him in on the recent events of the village, and the death of the Hyuga heiress was certainly a topic of discussion. The third had been afraid Hiashi might try something like this, but he had never dreamed he would seek him out to personally aid in his vengeance. "My nephew Niji," Hiashi said coldly. "May I ask why you wish for Naruto to defeat Niji so badly?" Jiraiya said, putting on a confused face. Hiashi crossed his arms over his chest, closing his eyes as he spoke. "I believe we are both well aware of the situation at hand, Lord Jiraiya, so if we could please drop the formalities of feigned ignorance, it will save us both a lot of time." "Very well," Jiraiya said, becoming serious. "If that is the case, then allow me to restate my question. Why do you wish me to teach Naruto and how to kill Niji?" Because you are the only man capable of teaching him how to control that thing that resides within him, Hiashi said, looking into Jiraiya's eyes. You play a dangerous game, Hiashi, Jiraiya said, glaring back. Even if I could teach him to control the beast's power, why would I do so to further your revenge? You are mistaken, Jiraiya, Hiashi chuckled. It is not my revenge the boy seeks. He has made an oath in blood to kill my nephew when they meet in the finals. For some reason I have not discovered, my daughter had become very important to the boy. Her death has spurred him to enact justice against Niji, and he would do so with or without my help, or yours. My nephew is considered a prodigy among the clan, while the boy is the dead last of his class. Those last words caused a slight flinch in Jiraiya which did not go unnoticed. He has vowed to kill Niji, or die trying, Hiashi said, callously shrugging his shoulders. If he is left untrained, then I'm sure his fate will be the latter. Jiraiya now found himself in a corner. He could deny the request and allow his godson to be used as a weapon for Hayashi's own ambition. That or teach the boy and quite possible make an even deadly weapon. Jiraiya knew the road revenge led one down and had seen many good men devoured by it. He would not let that happen to Minato's son. I want to meet the kid first, Jiraiya said, returning to appearing bored. Of course you do, Hiashi said, smirking. We will meet at 8 tomorrow at Training Ground 26. Until then, Jiraiya said, disappearing in a puff of smoke. The next day, Training Ground 26. Jiraiya sat in a tree watching as Naruto and the Hyuga girl exchanged blows. He could see that Naruto's skill in taijutsu was clumsy and too straightforward, and Hiashi was correct that a fighter such as Niji would have a field day against such a sloppy opponent. Nothing about the boy was very impressive, and he inwardly cursed that the boy had been so poorly trained in even the basics of the ninja arts. Hiashi had also mentioned his chakra control was horrendous, even for a genin. The girl was a typical Hyuga, methodical and precise with each strike and counter. She seemed to be able to respond well to any of the more unorthodox kicks and punches sent her way. Then Naruto summoned up a small squad of shadow clones. This got Jiraiya's attention. The shadow clone jutsu was an advanced technique, and was not something a genin just learned. He had never been briefed on Naruto's abilities because at the time it wasn't important, but watching his clones swarm over the young Hyuga got him very curious. Hanabi in the meantime was feeling déjà vu all over again as Naruto flew by aiming strikes at her head and body. Although she did not plan on falling for the same trick twice, Naruto had also adopted a new strategy to simply overwhelm the girl by having a constant barrage of attacks coming from all angles. Hiashi watched as his daughter was fighting a losing battle and was impressed that he had taken his advice from the previous day and had adopted a new tactic to surround and force his opponent on the defensive. If Hanabi knew the Kaiten technique, such a strategy would be useless. Perhaps you are ready to learn the more advanced techniques of our family, Hiashi thought watching his daughter. True Niji would not know such a technique as it was taught only to the main family, but these sparring matches were just as much for Hanabi's benefit as it was for Naruto's. That's enough, Hiashi called out, halting the action. Hanabi relaxed her stance, breathing heavily and glaring at her sparring partner who seemed unaffected by the fight, grinning like an idiot. Why is he not tired? Hanabi thought, annoyed. That is all for today, young Uzumaki, Hiashi said, strolling forward. You are to meet your tutor today, and I wish to begin training Hanabi to be a more difficult challenge. Hanabi cringed slightly at her father's words as she had always been a success in his eyes and it was rare for her to be viewed as disappointing. Sure thing, Naruto said, dispelling his clones. Speaking of that tutor, Hiashi said, turning around, Lord Jiraiya, it's good of you to join us. Naruto turned to see a tall man with white hair and a red coat, arms crossed with a serious look on his face. This is Lord Jiraiya, one of the Sannin and a former student of the 3rd Hokage, Hiashi said, motioning to the Sannin. He also taught the 4th Hokage. If Naruto's eyes could have gotten bigger, they would have exploded as he stared at the man who would be his tutor. Hayashi's held an amused smirk as he watched the loudest person in the village render speechless. Nice to meet you, kid, Jiraiya said, smiling. Lord Hiashi tells me you could use some help as far as technique and chakra control. Well, I'd like to learn some new techniques, but my control was fine until that snake bastard hit me in the forest, Naruto pouted. Orochimaru, Jiraiya asked, concerned, what did he do to you exactly? He hit me in the gut, and I passed out, and ever since I woke up I felt weird, Naruto said, rubbing his stomach. Jiraiya said, rubbing his chin. Kid, do me a favor and lift up your shirt. Naruto did so with Hiashi looking on in interest and Hanabi turning quickly away, blushing. Now just focus some chakra into your body. Naruto did, and the seal became visible as Jiraiya inspected it. There is definitely a second seal that was placed over the original. No doubt Orochimaru's work. He never was really as good as Minato. Better take care of this before that snake seal causes a problem, Jiraiya thought. Okay, kid, I want you to raise your hands up and hold them over your head, Jiraiya instructed. All right, and then what? Naruto asked, holding his arms up. Brace yourself, Jiraiya said, doing hand seals. Naruto managed to say before Jiraiya slammed his fingers into the seal, releasing the technique and crumpling Naruto in the process. What the hell was that for? Naruto yelled, jumping to his feet. Quiet, brat. I just undid whatever Orochimaru did to you. You're welcome, by the way, Jiraiya said, annoyed. Oh, thanks, I guess, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. I'll take him from here, Jiraiya said, clamping a hand on Naruto's shoulder, and in a puff of smoke, teacher and student were gone. Training ground 9 noon. Sakura stood in her defensive stance, staring down her blonde opponent. Ino returned the glare, taking a step to the left before charging in with a wide spinning kick. Sakura dodged the kick, countering with a right hook followed by a quick spinning backhand. Ino backed away from both blows, just stepping out of Sakura's reach. Pressing the attack, Sakura charged forward, feigning left, and catching Ino in the gut with a hard right. Ino gasped, falling to one knee as Sakura returned to her starting stance. That's one more for Sakura, Tenten called out, scratching a mark on the tree next to her. That's 4 points to 3 in favor of Sakura. Ino, one more and she wins. Like hell I'm gonna let that happen, Ino said, steadying her breathing. The two resumed their positions as 2 other figures looked on. She hits awfully hard for someone her age, no doubt thanks to your training, Kurenai said, smirking. Actually, I had nothing to do with that. The girl can hit quite hard all on her own, Guy said sheepishly. She seems to have a natural talent at inflicting pain. Combine that with my own youthful training regiment, and you'll have a very dangerous kunoichi. What about Ino? Kurenai asked, watching said girl back flip away from Sakura's axe kick. Ino's strength is in her superior agility and speed. I am teaching her to fight in a more defensive style, waiting for your opponent to make a mistake and capitalize. But sometimes her fires of youth burn a bit too bright, and she charges headfirst a tad bit recklessly. As if to drive the point home, Ino dashed forward, trying to get inside Sakura's guard, only to be sidestepped and hit with an elbow to the kidneys, ending the match. I am curious as to why you wish to take these 2 under your wing, Guy said, crossing his arms. I became aware of their goal to become stronger, and I am always supportive of my fellow kunoichi, especially those who become serious to the lifestyle. They could learn a great deal from what I have to teach them, and I think it would be good to return to teaching. Guy nodded in understanding, as he was familiar with her situation. Those students who were members of clans were often trained by their own families for the Chunin exam finals. That and Kurenai had lost a member of her team. Guy closed his eyes, angry at his student for breaking his word to not allow the hatred for the main family to consume him. He was fortunate enough that Lee had survived his match as only barley. Had Lee been killed, he didn't know how he would have dealt with it. Looking at Kurenai, he knew she was perhaps stronger than he could ever hope to be. I for one believe that one can ever learn too much, and would be honored if you would also teach Tenten as well. Although I am a taijutsu master, there are just some things I cannot teach her myself, Guy explained. Kurenai thought it over and decided it wouldn't hurt. Tenten, from what she had seen at the exams, was very dedicated and a very good ninja, one who without a doubt would be interested in learning what she had to offer. Very well then, I'll take her on also. You train them in the morning and I'll train them after lunch, Kurenai said, walking towards the 3. Agreed, Guy said, following her down to give the good news to the 3 very tired genin. Hokage Monument. Jiraiya and Naruto appeared on the mountain overlooking the village in a plume of smoke. Naruto looked around, unsure at first where he was, until he caught sight of the village below. Why did you bring us to the monument? Naruto asked, looking up at his new tutor. To talk, Jiraiya said, taking a seat on a large rock. What do you mean talk? Aren't you going to teach me some cool moves to use? Not quite yet, kid, Jiraiya said, chuckling. I'm not even sure if I'm going to teach you yet. What? I thought you were my tutor. That's what you're supposed to do, Naruto yelled. Hiashi said I was your tutor, but I never said I was. The Hyugas don't control everything, and that certainly goes for me, Jiraiya said, somewhat annoyed. Fine, so what did you want to talk about? Naruto asked, sitting on the ground. Well, I'd like to get to know what a prospective student is capable of, Jiraiya said, scratching his chin. For instance, how did you come by that shadow clone jutsu of yours? They don't just hand that technique out at the academy. At least they didn't when I was a kid. It's kind of a long story, Naruto said sheepishly. Well, I've got plenty of time, Jiraiya said, getting comfortable. Naruto shrugged and related how Mizuki had tricked him, stealing the scroll with his sexy jutsu and learning the shadow clone jutsu in just a few hours. Jiraiya for his part was impressed that a boy his age and the supposed dead last of his class could learn such a technique so quickly. He was also very intrigued by this sexy jutsu and needed to remember to ask what that was before the day was done. Well, I'll give you one thing, kid, that is very impressive to master a jutsu like that in just a few hours, Jiraiya said, watching Naruto's face light up. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna train you. Why the hell not? Naruto said, jumping to his feet. Tell me, why is it so important that I teach you? I have to get stronger for the Chunin exam finals. Why? Jiraiya asked, staring into Naruto's eyes. So I can avenge the death of someone precious to me, Naruto said, staring back. Revenge, huh? Jiraiya snorted. Justice, was the reply. You know I've been hearing that word a lot lately, and I do not think it means what you think it means. Either way, I made an oath in blood and don't intend to break it. I never go back on my word, Naruto said, balling his fists. And say you get your revenge, Jiraiya said, standing, and someone decides to swear an oath against you and they get their revenge, and one of your friends tries to avenge you and one of theirs tries to avenge that person, when does it end? Naruto had no answer and could only look into the serious face before him. The answer is that it doesn't end, that cycle of hate never does. To walk that path is to walk into darkness, and if you are on that path, then I can't teach you. Jiraiya had expected another outburst, but it never came. Naruto's look of anger changed to one of disappointment as he lowered his eyes to the ground. I understand, but with or without your help, I'm not breaking my promise, Naruto said quietly. Jiraiya watched the boy leave and felt his heart drop. I've failed you, Minato. I hope you can forgive me, but I can't teach him, Jiraiya thought, watching Naruto walk off. I have to bring him back to the light. I couldn't save you, but I will save him, Jiraiya said to no one. Later that night, Neji was walking down a hallway he recognized as part of the Hyuga compound. It was dimly lit, and there didn't seem to be anyone around. The mansion was quiet as he made his way further down the hall, stopping when he spotted a shadowy figure before him. Walking forward, he saw the long white robes of the Hyuga and a band on their forehead marking them as the branch family. The light was faint, but he could just make out the man's face. Father, Neji gasped, indeed seeing his dead father standing before him. Hiashi looked up at his son, before giving a sad smile, shaking his head and turning to leave. Wait, father, Neji cried out, only to have the man continue to walk away. He ran after him only to have Hiashi fade into the blackness, sending Neji crashing into a wall. Neji woke gasping for air, sweat pouring down his face. Another nightmare, or really the same nightmare he had experienced for the past few days. Calming himself, Neji got out of bed and walked to the window, staring up at the moon through the canopy of trees. The house he had been brought to was in a secluded part of the village, miles from the village center, hidden by the lush forest. He was told that he would be safe here, and that he could train secretly away from the all-seeing eyes of the main family. Tomorrow he would begin learning some of the clan's more powerful techniques, and had hoped the nightmares would leave him for at least one night. The strange part about these dreams was not that he saw his father. In fact, he often dreamed of speaking with his father, and what life would have been like for them if he had not been sacrificed for the good of the main family. Always they seemed happy and carefree, but in these nightmares his father almost seemed disappointed and sad. Pushing such foolish thoughts aside, Neji returned to bed and trying to get some sleep for a big day tomorrow. Meanwhile, across the village, another genin was also suffering from some rather strange dreams. He was trudging through what seemed like a dark sewer. Foul-smelling water slashing under his feet and a slight fog in the air. He walked forward, unsure of where he was or where he was going, but felt compelled to continue onward. Eventually, the tunnel made way to a massive room, a large cage door splitting it in half, the air heavy and even fouler than the sewer. The cage stretched from the floor to the ceiling and appeared to be made from gleaming steel, a piece of parchment with the kanji for seal hanging on it. Where am I? Naruto thought aloud. So, you finally have found this place, a dark voice rumbled. Who's there? Naruto said, getting into a stance. You know who I am. I have been with you since the beginning of your miserable and insignificant life, the voice growled out. A pair of red eyes opened behind the bars, revealing slit pupils and radiating rage and hatred. Kyuubi, Naruto whispered, backing away. Release me, insect, and I shall destroy those who have hurt you, those that would hurt those precious to you, Kyuubi bellowed. And every other living thing in the village, Naruto shouted back. What do you think, I am stupid? You are weak. Without my help you will never fulfill your oath. You are a failure and will remain a failure, Kyuubi taunted. I've been on my own for this long, what makes you think I need you? Naruto yelled. Because I am the power you need. The power to kill your enemies and protect those close to you. The power to save the ones you love, the demon whispered. I don't need you, Naruto said, turning away. We shall see, little boy, the demon said, grinning. When you are tired of watching those close to you die, come see me again. I'll be waiting. Before Naruto could move, he was cast from his mindscape and falling into a dreamless sleep. Chapter 5, Lessons Learned. Neji stood in a forest clearing, eyes closed and hands at his side. He heard the slight breeze wisp through the foliage, the gentle rustling of leaves the only sound accompanying his preparation. Slowly, he opened his eyes, silently commanding his Byakugan to activate as he took a defensive position. The attack came from all sides, a hail of kunai from every direction. Calmly, Neji pivoted his foot and began spinning, releasing chakra from all points on his body. Kaiten, Neji called out as the kunai bounced off his ultimate defense. The rain of metal fell harmlessly at his feet as he resumed a ready position, the sound of clapping breaking the calm. Excellent Niji, Goro said, still clapping. To learn such a difficult technique in just 3 weeks, truly the strength of the clan resides in the branch family. You honor me with your praise, Elder Goro, Niji said, bowing. It is well deserved, Niji, Goro said, placing a hand on Niji's shoulder. Both Jiro and I are very proud of you. The entire branch family is proud of what you have accomplished. I know that your father would be very proud of the hero you have become. This brought a small smile to the boy's face as he was dismissed to the house in order to rest and meditate, as the finals were now mere days away. Goro watched the retreating boy's form with a smirk as Jiro arrived next to the branch family elder. Giving the boy more encouragement, Uncle, Jiro said, smirking as well. I want Niji confident and sure of his actions going into the finals. He must have the utter conviction that he is fighting for the honor and freedom of the branch family, Goro said, closing his eyes. It is indeed fortunate that he has been isolated for this long. We are both aware that there are many within the family that do not share our positive view of the boy, Jiro said, somewhat annoyed. Those fools would be content to live under the boot of the main family for just a few kind words from a weak little girl, Goro huffed. When we have freed ourselves from the main family's grasp, then they shall come around to our way of thinking. Do you really believe this gambit of yours will work, Uncle? We have staked our lives on its success, Jiro. Of course I believe it will work. Once Niji has defeated Hiashi's Avenger and shown that he has mastered the main family's most powerful techniques, the Hyuga Council will be forced to recognize that the branch family has surpassed the main family, Goro said smugly. The council can be quite stubborn, Uncle. It will not be easy to convince them. The council understands that power is everything, and letting such ability waste away in the branch family is dangerous for the clan. They will be forced to admit that the branch family is the superior line, and through that we have a way to grab power. How much does Niji know about our plans? Jiro questioned. He knows that he must win in order for the council to see that the branch family is the more powerful faction, and through that we will free the family from the cursed seal. He knows nothing about our plans to overthrow the main family. He merely believes we are just trying to escape the seal. On the off chance he should fail? It doesn't really matter, Goro shrugged. If he wins, we proceed as planned. If he loses to the kyuubi brat, he simply becomes a martyr for our cause. Jiro scratched his chin, thinking through all the possible scenarios that might play out. He was cautious by nature, and was taking a large risk to assist in what was essentially a coup against the main family. What if Hiashi were to disclose the truth about Hisashi's death to Niji, that it was his choice to sacrifice himself to save his brother? Jiro finally asked. It is highly unlikely to occur, Goro said dismissively. Niji would hardly believe such a story now, and Hiashi is determined to have his vengeance. Do not worry, Jiro, Goro said, walking back towards the house. One way or another the days of the main house are numbered. Meanwhile, at Training Ground 8. Sakura and Ino stood facing each other, both in a ready position, sizing each other up. Off to the side, Kurenai and Tenten stood watching the two best friends prepare to destroy one another yet again. It had been just 3 weeks, and already both girls had grown by leaps and bounds. Their weights had been increased from 40 pounds to 100, much to Guy's shock and Tenten's chagrin. Their competitive drive and fierce rivalry had led them to take on Guy's method of punishment, each vowing to complete some bone-crunching goal if they failed to outdo the other. Tenten, who had been thrilled with the idea of training with other girls, had begun to watch in horror as the two kunoichi had turned into a pink and blonde version of Lee. Even Ino, who had once complained about every aspect of Guy's training, would now vow to run 200 extra laps around Konoha just because she had lost to Sakura in a spar. Guy, in the meantime, had been so excited about his new students that he declared they had the brightest fires of youth he had ever seen, second only to Lee. Despite how ridiculous it seemed, Tenten couldn't help but feel somewhat jealous about that. Not too long ago she had been miles ahead of the two, and now it seemed like they were leaving her in the dust. What made things worse was that Kurenai-sensei had deemed her unable to use genjutsu to an effective level. She had been taught how to dispel as well as recognize the signs of a genjutsu, but it still annoyed her that it was yet another thing her fellow kunoichi had surpassed her in. Sakura stood glaring down at Ino as she shifted her weight to her strong side. Ino sunk into the defensive stance Guy had shown her and began her usual tactic of goading. Let's go, forehead, you coming or what? Ino said, grinning. You sure you're ready for me, Ino pig? Sakura said, cracking her knuckles. Whatever, Pinky, Ino said, yawning. Sakura took a breath before rushing forward, aiming a fist at Ino's face. Ino dodged, sending a kick to Sakura's stomach, which was blocked and countered with a flurry of punches. Kurenai watched, slightly amazed at the progress both had made in such a short amount of time. Sakura was easily the strongest kunoichi among her age group and had taken to genjutsu like a fish to water. Ino, while not as strong as Sakura, had quickly mastered the new style Guy had been teaching her, and was quickly becoming an excellent fighter. She had also shown a natural proficiency for genjutsu, although she was not quite as skilled as Sakura. Tenten, although not very gifted for genjutsu, had found new motivation in her fellow genin to push herself to new limits and greater strength. A cry of frustration from Sakura broke Kurenai from her thoughts as she watched the young genin of Team 7 barrel forward with a continuous stream of rights and lefts. Ino dodged the strikes as she had been taught, waiting for Sakura to make a mistake and for her to capitalize. Sakura threw one last punch that had her shift her weight too far forward, a mistake. Ino broke inside Sakura's guard, delivering a crushing uppercut into Sakura's jaw, the capitalization. But the elation of victory vanished, as did Sakura, quite literally, as her body dispersed into a cloud of cherry blossom petals that swirled around Ino in an angry vortex of pink. It was a jutsu Kurenai-sensei had taught them called Hidden Leaf Vortex that Sakura had altered to use cherry blossom petals. Its main use was to confuse and disorient your opponent, allowing you to escape or to strike. "I don't think so, forehead," Ino yelled, forming a hand sign. "Release," she cried, dispelling the jutsu. The swirl of petals faded as Ino regained her bearings, searching for her opponent. Her opponent instead found her, placing a swift kick right under Ino's chin, sending her tumbling head over heels across the grass and landing in a heap. Sakura cautiously approached Ino's still limp body before stopping and smirking. "I'm not falling for that one again, Ino pig." "Release," Sakura yelled, watching as Ino's body vanished. "That possum illusion technique is only going to work on me once, you'll have to try something new." As if on cue, someone who looked like Kiba landed in the field with a confused look on his face, staring at Sakura. "Sakura? What the heck are you doing here?" Kiba asked, looking around. "Really, Ino?" Sakura said, laughing. "Did you think I would fall for that?" "Ino? Sakura, it's me, Kiba. What are you talking about?" Kiba asked, even more confused. "If you're Kiba, then where is Akamaru?" Sakura said, pointing at Kiba. "I dropped him off at my sister's clinic for his checkup and came here to kill some time," Kiba said, looking at Sakura strangely. "Oh, I'm sorry, Kiba. I thought you were somebody," Sakura began before throwing a punch. Kiba jumped back, somewhat surprised by the speed of the punch. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Kiba yelled. Sakura ignored Kiba and continued pressing the attack, forcing him on the defensive. Ino, who had begun to prepare her next move when Kiba arrived, walked over to Kurenai and Tenten. "Should we tell her it really is Kiba over there?" Ino asked, smirking. "I feel it would be a good test as to how far she's progressed. Kiba is a very strong fighter and I'd like to see how he handles the new and improved Sakura," Kurenai said, smiling. Kiba, for his part, was rather stunned that this very fast and very strong girl was Sakura from his class. Sure, she was smart, but she was never much of a fighter. Now she had him on the run, but not for long. Kiba blocked another punch before countering with a punch and kick of his own, halting Sakura and placing her on the defensive. "I don't know what got into you, but if it's a fight you want, you got it," Kiba growled, leaping forward. Kiba lashed out with heavy strikes that Sakura blocked but quickly began to tire from. Kiba relentlessly pressed forward with two swift kicks that sent Sakura flying back. Before he could recover, Kiba caught her with a right hook to the cheek that sent her stumbling, with Kiba catching her by the collar of her dress. "So are you gonna calm down or what?" Kiba said, holding Sakura up. Sakura only smiled before bursting into a cloud of cherry blossoms. "What the hell?" Kiba yelled, jumping back, surrounded by cherry blossom petals. Then he felt a strike hit him in the cheek. Whirling around, he saw nothing except pink flower petals. A strike to his gut brought him to his knees as he frantically looked around for his attacker. A final blow under his chin sent him sprawling to the ground in a heap. Sakura dispersed her jutsu and calmly approached her fallen opponent. "Nice try, Ino pig, but I won't go easy on you just because you make yourself look like Kiba. Maybe you should try being Sasuke next time," Sakura said, smirking triumphantly. "That's not a bad idea, forehead," Ino shouted from behind her. Sakura turned from Kiba to Ino and back, the realization of what she had done hitting her. "Oh my god, Kiba," she said, rushing over to the unconscious Inuzuka. "Don't worry, he'll be fine," Kurenai said, laughing. "His ego may never recover, but the rest of him will heal eventually." "Why didn't any of you tell me?" Sakura whined. "Where's the fun in that?" Ino said, sticking out her tongue. "You should be very proud, Sakura. Kiba was the second best fighter in your class, and you beat him using everything you've learned from both myself and Guy-sensei," Kurenai said, hoisting Kiba on her shoulder. "We'll hold on training until after we get him to the hospital to get checked out." Training Ground 26 that day. Two figures clashed in the sun, parrying kunai strikes, punches and kicks. One, a small blonde genin, creates an army of shadow clones that charge towards their target. Ko sees the advancing force and takes to the trees to avoid being surrounded. The clones break into two groups, one to pursue and one to intercept. Hiashi allows a small smile to grace his lips as he sees his lessons on tactics seem to finally have penetrated into the boy's thick skull. The smile was immediately replaced by a scowl as a familiar presence appears behind him. For the past week, Jiraiya would come and observe Naruto's training and the lessons Hiashi was giving him. At first it had been only a nuisance, but now it had become increasingly more of a distraction as the finals approached. "For someone who would deny him training, you certainly are interested in his progress, Lord Jiraiya," Hiashi said, not turning around. Upset that I wouldn't agree to making your weapon any stronger, Lord Hiashi, Jiraiya said, leaning against a tree, rather unbecoming of a Hyuga. A weapon, eh? Your words, not mine, Lord Jiraiya. I am simply helping the boy to not die in his fight with my nephew. That is more than can be said for you. Hiashi could feel the anger radiating off of Jiraiya as he inwardly smirked at how easy it was to rattle such a powerful man. He had been rather disappointed that Jiraiya had refused to help and had forced him to tutor the boy in tactics himself and to enlist the help of a trusted member of the main family to act as a sparring partner. Aggravating the Sannin was merely a small recompense for the added risks he was taking. You know as well as I do that the village elders had wanted to train Naruto to become a living weapon, Jiraiya said, gritting his teeth, a soulless killing machine to be turned loose on our enemies. If not for the third and the clan heads, that may very well have happened. And if you recall, I was among those that had spoke against using the boy in such a way, Hiashi said, not turning around. Until it serves your own means, Jiraiya said accusingly. I will not deny that we share the same goal. But to insinuate that I am forcing this upon Naruto is laughable, Hiashi said, walking towards the field. For some reason my daughter has come to mean a great deal to him. So much so that he swore an oath in blood to avenge her death, and neither myself, my nephew, or your foolish idealism will stand in his way of seeing that oath fulfilled. Hiashi left Jiraiya in the woods and called Ko and Naruto to his side. The two broke from their spar with Naruto dispelling his clones, and Ko seemingly thankful for the break. That will be all for today, young Uzumaki, Hiashi said, looking over the boy. There is not much more that I can teach you with the finals just a few days away. You have done an excellent job keeping Ko on his toes in your spars, and I am glad to see those lectures about tactics are finally sinking in. Naruto could only nod and sheepishly rub the back of his head. I want you to rest for the next few days and go over what we have discussed in your mind, Hiashi said, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. Hiashi nodded in understanding as he led both men out of the training grounds. I'm sure you wish to visit your friend in the hospital, so do not let me keep you, Hiashi said, motioning to Naruto, who bowed to both men and ran off, unaware he was being followed by a certain white-haired pervert. Konoha Hospital. Rock Lee lay in his bed asleep, or more accurately sedated, dreaming of training and Sakura. It had been 3 weeks since he had first come in a broken mess, and it would be another 3 weeks until he would be allowed to begin his physical therapy. Every so often he would try to exercise on his own, cast or no cast, and usually the nurses would be forced to sedate him to keep him in bed. Lately, Tenten, Sakura and Ino had been coming to visit after their training along with Naruto. Lee had been thrilled to hear his friends had been training so hard and that his crush had been training with Guy-sensei no less. The very thought had pushed him even harder to recover and once again be training with not only his teacher but also his love. It was pleasant dreams like that and the large doses of horse sedatives that had kept him oblivious to the danger that stood inside his room. A small boy with red hair and a gourd strapped to his back stood over his bed with the most evil of intentions in his heart. His normally calm demeanor replaced by wide-eyed madness, as he stood there shaking and clutching his head as a voice that was not his own commanded him to action. Kill him, the voice ordered. Sand began to ooze out of the gourd. Give his blood to us. Slowly sand began to crawl up the bed and over the sheets. Prove your existence. The sand spreads over Rock Lee's still form encasing his body. Kill him. Bringing his hand up, Gaara closes it into a fist as he and the voice utter a single command as one. Sand burial. Chapter 6, Inner Demons. Gaara stood in the hospital room, arm outstretched, and his hand nearly closed into a tight fist that normally would have resulted in the object of his hatred smashed under the torrents of his sand. But his motion had been halted and the boy lying in the bed continued to dream peacefully, much to his growing anger. He tried to move his head to see behind him but found his body to be paralyzed. Confusion led to pain as he felt a fist impact on his cheek, the sand armor absorbing most of the blow but sending him staggering back. It was not often that he was physically touched, and to be struck stirred a sensation of rage within him, yet at the same time filling him with exuberance. Sakura, be careful, whatever happens to his body causes mine to react the same way, Shikamaru yelled, annoyed. Sorry, Sakura said, taking a defensive stance to Gaara's left. What the hell were you trying to do to Lee? Tenten growled, pulling a kunai and watching as the sand gently returned to the gourd on Gaara's back. How is the sand moving if I have him trapped with my shadow? Shikamaru thought, also eyeing the sand. It's like it has a mind of its own. Gaara looked over the 4 genin with disinterest as the sand funneled back from whence it came. They were nervous and a little afraid. He could feel it, even taste it in the air. Well, what were you doing? Sakura asked, keeping one eye on the gourd and another on the sand nin. I was trying to kill him, was Gaara's matter-of-fact reply. This took the leaf genin somewhat aback, as he was admitting to attempted murder, as calmly as if he was explaining he had been pouring Lee a glass of water. All I wanted to do was visit Choji, and I run into Ino and her friends who are visiting Lee. Come on, Shikamaru, just stopping to say hello, what's the worst that could happen? Shikamaru whined to himself. What a drag, now I have to get this psycho to calm down, or he might try to kill us all. Ino, Tenten, you two go get help while I hold him here, Shikamaru ordered. Are you nuts? I'm not leaving you alone with that, Ino shrieked, pointing at Gaara. I'll have Sakura here to back me up, now get going, Shikamaru said, wincing slightly. Ino had known Shikamaru long enough to tell when he was losing control over an enemy's shadow. At full strength he could hold his technique for nearly 10 minutes, but Gaara was fighting him. She figured he had maybe 5 minutes at most, and if Gaara got free, her two best friends would be killed. We'll be back as soon as we can, Ino called over her shoulder, her heading left and Tenten going right. Sakura and Shikamaru warily eyed Gaara, who seemed almost bored as he stood silently glaring at the two-leaf genin. You're losing your hold over me, Gaara finally said, staring at Shikamaru. I can feel you starting to weaken. Shikamaru gritted his teeth, his mind racing for a way out of this mess. His chakra was fading fast, and it was taking all the concentration he had just to keep his hold. Gaara would be free in a few minutes, and then there was nothing he could do to stop this freak. Maybe I can try to bluff him, Shikamaru thought to himself. Our friends will be back with help soon. If you promise to leave peacefully, we can all just turn around and leave, Shikamaru said, trying his best to look confident. I will not leave until I have killed him, Gaara said, motioning to Lee with his eyes. Why do you want to kill Lee? You beat him in your match, what else do you want? Sakura asked, confused. I want to validate my existence by ending his, Gaara said, a crazed look sweeping over his eyes. Through his blood my life will continue to have meaning. Like hell it will, a voice yelled from the doorway. Sakura, Shikamaru and by proxy Gaara turned to see Naruto rushing in with Ino close behind. Sakura had never been happier to see her teammate, although Shikamaru was less than enthusiastic. Ino, when I said to get help I meant a Jonin or a Chunin at least, Shikamaru huffed. Well, he was the first person I saw and I figured he could help, Ino said, rushing to Shikamaru's side. Ino told me what No Brows was trying to do to Bushy Brows, Naruto said, pulling out a kunai. Let's get him. Naruto, we can't have a battle in the middle of the hospital, Shikamaru said, trying to hold his technique. Now that you're here we have him outnumbered 4-1, he's at a clear disadvantage, and it would be smart if he just left, Shikamaru said, trying to persuade the Sannin to leave. You fear me, I can sense it, Gaara said, fighting to raise his arm. Your fear, your terror is intoxicating to me and I will have more of it. Shikamaru's shadow broke from Gaara's, and before he could say anything sand shot from Gaara's gourd wrapping around the leaf genin wrists, necks and mouths, lifting them in the air and muffling their screams. Mother shall feast on your blood, starting with him, Gaara growled, turning to Lee. No, this isn't happening, Naruto shouted in his mind. I won't let another one of my friends die. Naruto struggled against the binds to no avail, watching helplessly as the sand began to wrap around Lee's body. Your friends are going to die, Kyuubi's voice echoed in Naruto's head. I won't let that happen, Naruto yelled back. You are too weak to protect them. Take my power and destroy those who would hurt you, hurt your precious people, the demon sneered. Aye, Naruto stammered. Do you not wish to save them? Do you wish for them to die? And no, Naruto defiantly yelled out, give me the power to save them. Kyuubi laughed as he began to pour chakra into Naruto's body. Gaara, who had just been ready to strike Lee down, suddenly froze and grabbed his head. The voice of Mother was shrieking as if it was in pain, the cries echoing in his mind. Turning, he saw the loud blonde the girl had brought and was surrounded in a cloak of bubbling red chakra that seemed more evil than anything he had ever felt in his life. For the first time since the night his uncle had tried to kill him, Gaara was afraid. It was a sensation that thrilled him to the very core, feeling truly alive since he could not remember when. Regaining his composure, Gaara stood, his sand swirling around him in a protective cyclone. The chakra around Naruto settled into the form of a fox, a single tail swishing back and forth as Naruto looked up to reveal red eyes with slit pupils and fangs protruding from his mouth. I was wrong about you, Gaara said, smiling. Killing you would prove my existence 1,000 times over. You tried to kill my friends, Naruto said, gathering chakra to his hand, forming a claw by mere instinct. I am going to destroy you. Then let us decide whose existence will continue, Gaara screamed, shooting spears of sand at Naruto. Naruto dodged and shot a chakra claw towards Gaara, whose sand rose to block the attack. Chakra and sand clashed, smoking and burning as the two attacks intertwined with one another. Naruto turned to launch another attack when a puff of smoke erupted between the two containers. Obscured by the smoke, a hand shot out in either direction, slapping a sealing tag on both Jinchuriki. Immediately both Naruto and Gaara fell to the ground, their connection to their prisoners cut off. It was at that moment that Tenten had arrived with Might Guy just in time to see Jiraiya hoisting Naruto on his shoulder. What is going on here, Lord Jiraiya? Guy said, rushing into the room to survey the damage. I think the Kazekage's son had plans to harm Lee, and the genin stepped in to stop him. I need to take Naruto to go check on something and to talk with the Hokage. The sand brat should be out for a while, I'll tell the Hokage to inform his Jonin-sensei of what has happened here, Jiraiya said, disappearing in a puff of smoke. Tenten stood at the door wide-eyed in shock as she saw her new friends lying on the floor. She gave a sigh of relief as she saw Sakura, Shikamaru and Ino squirm and groan as they lay unconscious but not dead. She looked quickly to Lee, who remained asleep with a small smile on his face, blissfully unaware of the danger he had been in. Come Tenten, let us try to awaken your youthful comrades, Guy said, snapping Tenten from her trance. Tenten helped to sit the three genin up against the wall as Guy tended to Gaara. Tenten had already told him what Gaara had intended to do to his beloved student, and it was taking all of his willpower not to finish the job Naruto had started. But this was the Kazekage's son, and such actions would lead to a war, so he would have to keep his baser instincts in check. Looking over his shoulder, he couldn't help but have an immense feeling of pride well up inside him, knowing that his students would go so far to protect their friends. I'm very proud of you, Tenten, of all of you, for protecting Lee. You more than anyone knows how much Lee means to me, Guy said, a solemn look on his face. Tenten gave her sensei a small smile and looked over to Lee. He means a lot to us as well, sensei, and I know he wouldn't hesitate for a second to do the same for any of us. At the Hokage's office, the third had just taken a break from his paperwork to enjoy a little pipe tobacco and to maybe read a few pages of Jiraiya's new book when a heavy presence erupted from the hospital. Tough, most civilians would be unaware of what exactly the presence was. Any ninja who had been there 12 years ago would know it was the power of the Nine Tails. It was small and nothing like it had been all those years ago, but the level of malice laced with it was undeniable. Sarutobi was about to call the ANBU to investigate when, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the energy disappeared. Curious, the third Hokage rose to face window that overlooked the area of the hospital. There didn't seem to be any disturbances that he could see, and it seemed that no one was rushing towards the hospital in panic. Scratching his beard, he turned back towards his seat to find Jiraiya standing there with his arms crossed. Most people use the door, Jiraiya, Sarutobi said, smirking. I see, Sarutobi said, sitting in his chair, so that was indeed the fox's chakra I had felt earlier. Jiraiya nodded grimly. Is the seal damaged in any way? The Hokage asked, taking a drag from his pipe. From what I can tell, no, but I'll have to do a more thorough examination later. I just wanted you to know that everything is fine for now. Did something happen? From what I can tell from the situation when I arrived, the Kazekage's son Gaara attempted to assassinate Might Guy's student Lee. Several genin who were visiting the boy attempted to hold him off but failed. Naruto may have called on the fox's power to help him defeat Gaara. And you didn't intervene before this happened? I was unaware any of this was happening until I felt the power spike from Naruto and Gaara. Gaara as well. I've had my suspicions about that boy ever since the exams started. Do you believe he is also a Jinchuriki? I'm almost positive. The suppression seal I used on Naruto I also used on Gaara. The seal is designed to cut off the chakra a tailed beast provides its host. It's useless in any other situation, but it worked quite well on Gaara. And what did you do with Gaara? I left him at the hospital with Might Guy. The seal should keep him out for a few hours. I told Guy that I would inform you of the situation so you could alert Gaara's Jonin-sensei of what's happened. Very well, I'll have the ANBU take care of it, Sarutobi said, emptying his pipe. But what is to be done with Naruto? I'll take a look at the seal, but I'm sure he'll be fine, Jiraiya said, shrugging. That's not what I meant, Jiraiya, Sarutobi said, rising. If Naruto is able to summon the power of the fox, then he must be taught how to control it. If he releases too much, the seal could weaken and the Nine Tails could be unleashed. And I suppose you would like me to teach him, Jiraiya questioned. Well, you do have the most intricate knowledge of the seal, and you know the limitations of how much stress it can handle, Sarutobi said, walking to the window. Jiraiya could only sigh as he knew the old man was right and any further discussion was moot. Hoisting Naruto onto his shoulder, he turned to face his former sensei. There isn't much that I can do seeing as the finals are tomorrow, but I'll take him back to his apartment and try and find out exactly how he learned to tap into the kyuubi's chakra and to what extent he can wield it. The Hokage watched as his former student vanished in a plume of smoke, sitting back in his chair and debating on whether or not to relight his pipe. The day had certainly been interesting so far, and soon the end game to this drama would play out on the grandest of stages. Sighing, he reached for his pipe and began to fill it once again, mumbling how he was truly getting too old for this. At Naruto's apartment, Naruto opened his eyes slowly, his head aching and his body feeling numb. He was greeted to the sight of gray ceilings rather than pristine white, confirming at least he was not in the hospital. The smell of empty ramen cup and dirty laundry gave off a familiar feeling as his eyes opened wider, revealing the picture of Team 7 he kept on his night table. He was in his apartment, the question being now, how did he get here? For a second he thought that it might have been a dream, but the splitting headache and taste of blood in his mouth told him otherwise. It was then he noticed a second presence in the room, one that he was not familiar with. On instinct he drew a kunai and hurled it at the shadow seated in the corner, watching nervously as two fingers snatched the kunai from the air before tossing it to the side. You need to learn to be more careful, brat, otherwise you're likely to hurt someone, a somewhat familiar voice chided. I know that voice, Naruto said standing. You're that jerk that wouldn't train me from before. No, Jiraiya said, his eyebrow twitching. I'm the jerk who's going to be taking your training over from now on. I thought you didn't want to train me, Naruto said, pouting. Besides, I'm doing fine without you. Oh really, Jiraiya said, smirking. Then perhaps you would like to explain what that little explosion of demonic chakra in the hospital was all about. Naruto paled as the memories of exactly what happened came flooding back to him, his conversation with Kyuubi, and the torrent of power to his body, the feeling of near invincibility, and the craving for more. He had nearly lost himself to the power, and it frightened him. I lost control for a moment when I was trying to save my friends, Naruto said, looking down in shame. Jiraiya sat down next to his new student and placed a hand gently on Naruto's shoulder. One should never be ashamed to protect others, but you must understand that the power you wield is dangerous and difficult to control, Jiraiya said softly. If you allow that power to consume you, if you release too much too soon, your mind will be overwhelmed and the seal will break, releasing the kyuubi and destroying everything you cherish. Jiraiya did not want to scare the boy too badly since he needed to learn how to control the demon's power, but he also needed to be aware of what exactly the consequences would be in failing to control himself. Naruto for his part took in the advice and warning silently, eyes still trained on the floor, not even turning to look at his new teacher. Ever since I could remember, Naruto said quietly, people have always shunned me, like I was some kind of monster. It wasn't until Mizuki told me about the kyuubi that I really understood why. But even then, I knew that I wasn't a demon or monster, I was me, Naruto said, turning to Jiraiya. But today I felt for the first time in my life that I wasn't me, I was a demon, a monster, Naruto said, looking right into Jiraiya's eyes. I don't ever want to feel that way again. Jiraiya saw in Naruto's eyes all the resolve and determination of his father as well as the fierceness of his mother. He was truly their son, and if anyone could tame the kyuubi, he was sure Naruto could do it. Alright kid, starting after the finals we'll begin your training, Jiraiya proclaimed, slapping Naruto on the back. Until then I don't want you using the demonic chakra at all. Do I make myself clear? Jiraiya asked sternly, to which Naruto only nodded. Okay then, rest up because you have a big day ahead of you tomorrow, Jiraiya said, rising to leave. Wait, Naruto suddenly said, halting Jiraiya. You were the fourth Hokage-sensei, right? I was, Jiraiya said smugly. I always thought he was so cool, even cooler than the old man, Naruto said, somewhat embarrassed. Could you tell me what he was like? A warm smile came to Jiraiya's face as he sat back down. The godfather in him wanted to tell Naruto everything, but he knew now wasn't the time. Still, there wasn't anything wrong about sharing a few fond memories with a diehard fan, was there? And so they passed the time reminiscing and laughing as Jiraiya told story after story about the man who for now was only the coolest ninja ever. Elsewhere with Neji. Neji walked down the familiar dark hallway knowing exactly who he would encounter at the end. The dreams, no, the nightmares had been fairly consistent for nearly a month now. Neji would walk down the hall of the deserted Hyuga Manor to find his father. No matter what he did or said, his father would never speak to him, just offer a sad smile and vanish. Neji continued down the hall, and there sure enough was his father, looking just as he had the day he was killed. That sad smile etched across his face as he looked at his son. I don't understand, father, Neji said angrily. Why do you not speak to me? I am fighting for our family, so that we can be free of our curse, to be free from our fate. Hiashi said nothing, merely closing his eyes and shaking his head side to side. Why are you acting like this? Neji shouted. The family is proud of what I'm doing. They told me that you would have been proud of me. Hiashi remained silent, offering Neji nothing except another sad look. Neji was about to again confront his father when he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. Turning, his eyes went wide and he stumbled back in shock and fear. Before him was Hinata. He tried to take a defensive stance, but he found his entire body was paralyzed. He tried desperately to move as Hinata stalked closer and closer. She was right in front of him as she opened her arms, and he closed his eyes waiting for the strike to come. Instead, he felt her arms wrap around him in a warm embrace, her hand patting his back as if to soothe his pain. Neji ran a marathon of emotions from shock, to comfort, and quickly to anger. How dare she pity him? She had no right. Neji struggled to break free to no avail as Hinata eventually broke the hug and moved past him. Neji seemed to regain control of his body as he turned to see Hinata and his father walking away hand in hand and fading into the darkness. Neji woke with a gasp, clutching his chest and trying to steady his breathing. Getting out of bed, he went to the washroom to splash some water on his face, his reflection in the mirror and the blackness of the night his only company. Only a nightmare, Neji said to himself, only a nightmare. Neji returned to his bed and noted it was only 2 in the morning. He still had time to rest until Elder Goru and Jiro would arrive to escort him to the arena. Lying back down, he closed his eyes, allowing the calm of the night to claim him once again. It was only a nightmare, his last waking thought. Chapter 7 Promises. The sun was shining, mingling with a few fluffy clouds against clear blue skies. It was the perfect day for the finals. The Hokage sat in his throne overlooking the arena, watching as dignitaries and wealthy businessmen were led to the luxury boxes as the villagers and shinobi began to fill out the general arena seating. He was soon joined by the Kazekage of the Hidden Sand Village, flanked by his entourage of personal guards and wearing his customary blue and white robes, hat and silk veil he often wore outside his native village. Sarutobi offered a slight nod of the head to his fellow Kage, and a welcoming smile. "Ah, Lord Kazekage, I hope your journey was well," Sarutobi said politely. "It was quite uneventful," came the Kazekage's bored reply, "although it is quite fortunate that the exams are being held here in Konoha. The weather in Wind Country can be quite harsh this time of year, and a man your age might find it rather tasking." "I was never one to shy away from a little heat," the elder Kage said, laughing off the poorly veiled insult. "Perhaps," the Kazekage chuckled, "but don't you feel it's time you named a successor? After all, being Hokage is a young man's game." "Nonsense, I have plenty of good years still left in me," Sarutobi said, laughing heartily. "Indeed," the Kazekage mused. "On a more serious note, I must again apologize for my youngest son's transgressions as of late. He is quite a handful to control, and I'm sorry if he's caused you any trouble. I must admit that I was a little concerned that such an unstable boy was let into the Chunin Exams. He is highly skilled and very dangerous," Sarutobi said seriously. "It is very fortunate that no one was severely injured by him outside the exams themselves. I do wish you would reconsider allowing him to compete in the finals." The Kazekage sighed. Many of the lords in attendance were quite eager to watch Gaara and Sasuke Uchiha face one another. "True, but as we discussed yesterday, Gaara is too unsound to be allowed to fight as of now. We cannot be assured he will yield if instructed to, and I will not risk the lives of my genin to your son's bloodlust," Sarutobi said, staring down the Kazekage with a hard gaze. The Kazekage returned the stare until turning and sighing. "You are right, of course," the Kazekage conceded. Sarutobi relaxed in his chair once more, relieved that the Kazekage had not decided to put up more of a fight. Orochimaru, for his part, was quite pleased that his ruse was going so well. It would seem his old sensei was slipping, as he had not even suspected that the Kazekage was really his old student hiding behind a mask of flesh. Still as foolish as ever as sensei, Orochimaru thought, amused. The small bit of worry that had been tugging at the back of Orochimaru's mind had quickly vanished, as it seemed that his old sensei was indeed none the wiser to the army that lurked both within and beyond his village's walls. After Baki had killed that nosy jonin, Gaara had been detained, and Orochimaru had feared that perhaps his plans had been discovered. That little sand brat had nearly thrown his carefully laid plans into disarray. Gaara was an important part of the invasion, and if he had been killed it would have delayed if not postponed the entire invasion. Fortunately, the Leaf did not wish to start a war by harming the Kazekage's son, and had merely relinquished him back to his jonin's custody and banned him from the finals. "Your weak heart shall be your village's undoing, you old fool," Orochimaru thought, smirking under his veil. If nothing, it only hastened the plans of conquest. Gaara had been scheduled to fight second and was to unleash Shikaku during his match. Now they needed only to wait until the Sand Ninja could complete the summons for his snakes to smash the walls and allow the joint forces to pour through the rubble. Gaara, while unable to compete in the finals, was still the Kazekage's son and would be allowed to watch the matches from the Sand Village's private box. Once the invasion had begun, Gaara would release Shikaku and rampage across the village to his heart's delight, the scene bringing a smirk to Orochimaru's lips. The smirk Orochimaru held disappeared quickly, however, as he heard a familiar voice call out from behind him. "So, Lord Hokage, what do you think of today's matches?" Jiraiya bellowed, walking behind the third. "I feel we are in for some excellent matches today, Jiraiya," Sarutobi said, laughing. "Lord Kazekage, if I may present my former student Jiraiya of the Sannin." Jiraiya offered a respectful bow, with Orochimaru giving the slightest of nods. No introduction is necessary for a man of Jiraiya's reputation. "I've heard that you were the man who trained the fourth Hokage, are you not?" Orochimaru asked as innocently as he could. Yes, that is true, I was his sensei when he was just a genin," Jiraiya said, flinching slightly. "How interesting," Orochimaru said dismissively, yet laughing to himself how bringing up Minato always made Jiraiya stumble. He had hoped that Jiraiya would leave, but his old teammate seemed content to stand by the Hokage overlooking the crowd. He could prove to be a nuisance once the invasion begins, Orochimaru thought to himself. While idealistic and short-sighted, both his former teacher and former teammate were powerful ninja and together posed a threat even to him. Then again, Orochimaru thought, smiling, it would be rather interesting to see Jiraiya's reaction to my trump cards, especially him. The snake Sannin could only chuckle to himself as he watched the hustle and bustle of the arena, oblivious to the danger that surrounded them. Arena general seating. One such group of unaware villagers was a contingent of genin milling their way through the arena, their jonin sensei in tow. Ino, Sakura and Tenten chatted away happily as Kiba trudged along, still sulking about his loss to Sakura of all people. Akamaru followed closely at his master's feet with Kurenai just a step behind. They managed to find Choji, who had gone ahead to save some seats for them, waving them over with a hand not occupied by barbecue potato chips. Ino slid next to her teammate with the others filing in beside her. Kurenai smiled as she watched her students new and old, taking in the sight with a look of awe. This was their first time seeing the Chunin exam finals in all its glory, the huge crowds, the excited buzz of the people, all of it creating a very intense atmosphere. I can't believe how many people are here, Ino said, gawking at the crowds. I know, can you imagine what it must look like down on the arena floor as a finalist, Sakura said, also gawking. Ah, damn it, Kiba cursed loudly, somewhat startling those next to him. That should be me down there. Now because of that idiot's fart I can't show off my awesome skills, Kiba whined. The outburst led to a chorus of giggles from the kunoichi and a low growl from Akamaru. Oh I meant our awesome skills, don't think I forgot about you buddy, Kiba quickly amended, much to Akamaru's approval. Kurenai allowed herself a small laugh, relieved to see the old brash and cocky Kiba again. He had been wallowing in a rather depressed state since Hinata's death, and she had begun to worry if he would ever pull himself out of it. Kiba heard the laugh and turned to his teacher to see a smile, which he returned with one of his own. Well, it certainly is nice to see everyone in such good spirits, a familiar voice called out from behind the row of ninja. Everyone's head snapped around to see Kakashi smiling back at them. At least they were fairly certain he was smiling. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura cried out happily, does this mean Sasuke is back too? It's nice to see you too, Sakura, Kakashi sighed. Sorry, sensei. Sakura said sheepishly, you know I missed you as well. I'm not so sure, Kakashi said, scratching his chin. Seems to me that I've already been replaced, isn't that right, Kurenai-sensei? News travels fast, I see, Kurenai said, smirking. You have no idea, Kakashi sighed. I think I may have been camping out by the gates just so he could tell me how strong Sakura has become under your dual training sessions. This got a laugh from Kurenai, a slight blush of embarrassment from Sakura, and a shout of indignation from Ino. Forehead's not the only one who's been getting stronger around here, Ino shouted. Tenten and I are just as strong as her, if not stronger, Ino said, shaking her fist, and Tenten nodding in agreement. I didn't mean to forget you too, Kakashi said, putting up his hands. It's just that Sakura is my student, and I'm very proud of what she's accomplished. Sakura couldn't help but smile at the praise, feeling that she was now really on equal footing with Sasuke and Naruto. A member of the team, and not just a hindrance. Thank you, sensei, Sakura said quietly. There's no need to thank me, Sakura, Kakashi said, smiling. It was your own drive and fire that pushed you to become stronger. I only regret not being there to see it. Once again a teacher and student shared a small smile, with Ino looking unhappy for her friend, until a thought crossed her mind. You know, I really haven't spoken much to Asuma-sensei since we started our new training, Ino said sadly. I hope he isn't upset I've been spending so much time with Kurenai-sensei and Gai-sensei. What are you kidding, Choji said between bites, he thinks it's great. Well, obviously, since I'm getting so much stronger, Ino said, pleased. Actually, I think it's because he has more time to play shogi with Shikamaru, Choji said, opening another bag of chips. What, came the reply as it echoed throughout the arena. With the finalists. Shino stood against the wall, slightly obscured by the shadows, eyeing his competition. One eye locked on the two sand ninja who kept to themselves in the corner, and the other on Niji Hyuga. Shino could feel his Kikuchi buzzing in response to his anger, as he steadied his breathing in an effort to calm himself. Emotion led to mistakes, and he could afford none right now. Shino's quiet was shattered by the unmistakable voice of Naruto Uzumaki as he walked into the arena with Shikamaru Nara and Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto was prattling on about something, if not everything it seemed, with Shikamaru half listening and Sasuke appearing to not hear his teammate at all. Shino watched as Naruto's smile melted into a look of grim determination after locking eyes with Niji. He said something to Shikamaru, who only nodded and walked off, leaving Naruto and Sasuke to speak in private. Had he been more curious, he could have tried to eavesdrop, but it really wasn't any concern of his. Besides, he had his own work to do as he silently commanded a few of his female Kikuchi to attach themselves to the other finalists. Naruto watched Shikamaru leave before turning back to Sasuke, who was eyeing him cautiously now. Sasuke had seen the look on Naruto's face, and he probably wanted an answer to his request he had asked a month earlier. Sasuke could have said he really didn't have time to mull it over, that training had taken too much time for him to give a real answer. But that was a lie, and Sasuke knew it. He had spent many a night, lying awake trying to piece together this new Naruto, one that reminded him so much of himself, the pain, the regret, and the rage that boiled just under the surface of the facade. Could he take up Naruto's dream? Could he dedicate himself not only to his own ambitions but to the ambitions of a teammate, bonded only by their loneliness and hatred for one who had wronged them? He knew he would have his answer when he saw Naruto again. I know you want an answer to what we talked about before I left, Sasuke said sighing. I was a little worried Kakashi-sensei would make you late, Naruto said half joking. If I hadn't insisted on returning to speak with you he would have, Sasuke replied smirking. What did you decide? Naruto asked somewhat hesitantly. Sasuke saw the apprehension in Naruto's face, and let another sigh escape him as he was slightly regretting what he was about to do. I'm sorry Naruto, but I really have no interest in becoming Hokage, Sasuke said placing his hands in his pockets. I see, Naruto said quietly lowering his head. So you'll just have to avenge Hinata without dying, otherwise I'll be stuck with the job, Sasuke said smirking. Naruto's head snapped up to see the smirk, his own smile slowly creeping to his face. You really are a bastard sometimes, Naruto said grinning. And you're an idiot, Sasuke said walking forward. Before he could pass, Naruto's hand shot out grasping Sasuke's shoulder, halting them so they stood side by side staring in opposite directions. Thank you Sasuke, Naruto whispered. HN came the quiet reply as Sasuke walked towards the arena, Naruto a step behind. With Kurenai, Kakashi and the genin. It looks like the finalists are coming out, Kiba said pointing towards the arena floor. Look there's Sasuke, Ino chirped. And Naruto, Sakura said pointing. Kakashi and Kurenai watched as Gunma appeared to be giving his instructions to the genin and had announced Naruto Uzumaki and Niji Hyuga as the first match. Kakashi felt Kurenai stiffen slightly at the match announcement, his good eye lazily glancing over to the Genjutsu mistress. He knew she had not taken Hinata's death well but had managed to pull herself from her depression, no doubt keeping her mind busy with training Sakura, Ino and Tenten. He noticed that both Kurenai and Kiba were both fixed on the two combatants, Kiba with a look of battle rage and Kurenai wearing a neutral mask. I hope you two find the peace I was never able to obtain before the day is done, Kakashi thought turning his attention to the arena. With the Hyuga clan. Normally Hiashi might have only taken Hanabi with him to view the finals, but it had been decided that as a show of solidarity, the entire clan would attend as they took their place in one of the luxury boxes reserved specifically for the clans. Security was tight and Hiashi could feel the ghosting shadows of the ANBU patrolling the grounds. Hanabi sat at his right, talking with Yuko, a young woman from the branch family. Hiashi had noticed that Hanabi had begun to reach out to those of the branch family, as he had learned Hinata once did. He knew that the relationship between the two factions had been strained for quite some time ever since Hizashi's death, and he ultimately hoped that Hinata's death would be the catalyst to heal the rift. Hayashi's attention was drawn at the approach of Goru, the branch elder, and his grandson Jiro, the head of the branch family. Lord Hiashi, Goru and Jiro said bowing. Elder Goru, Jiro, Hiashi replied with a curt nod. Both continued to their seats under the watchful eye of Hiashi. He had been told that Niji had been taken from ANBU headquarters by Goru and that both he and Jiro had kept him out of sight since the preliminaries. He had been told it was to keep the tension between the families from escalating, but he knew they were up to something. The smug expressions both held as the first match was announced did not go unnoticed by Hiashi as he turned his attention to the arena. Arena floor. Niji stood still as he began to prepare himself, a breeze rustling the dust of the field as he glared at his opponent. Naruto returned the glare, undoing the clasp of his kunai pouch and shifting into his stance. Niji caught the slight movement and took his own defensive stance, silently activating his Byakugan. You seem rather serious, Niji taunted. No brash words or foolish declarations? Why waste words on a dead man? Naruto asked, shifting to his left. Indeed, Niji said, moving to his right. The breeze suddenly died as an eerie calm overtook the field. Niji shuffled a half-step forward and in an instant, the battle had begun. Naruto let fly with 3 kunai that Niji quickly dispatched with his own, deflecting 2 and catching the third with the ring of his kunai. His eyes suddenly widened as he tossed the linked kunai away, only to watch Naruto's weapon disappear in a puff of smoke to be replaced by a clone. The clone pressed the attack with a right cross that Niji blocked, ready to counter with his own strike, only for the clone to disappear in a cloud of smoke and a sharp pain to erupt from his thigh. Niji looked down to see a shuriken lodge just above his knee, but quickly focused to dodge another set of projectiles and to put some distance between himself and his opponent. Niji pulled the shuriken out with a grunt of pain with one hand, a kunai placed defensively in front with his free hand. Naruto for his part remained back and out of the reach of the gentle fist. Very clever, Niji said smirking, using your clone as a distraction and then locking a volley of shurikens striking both of us. It seems you are not as foolish as I originally thought. I think you'll find I'm full of surprises, Naruto said, making hand seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto called out, bringing 10 Narutos into existence. Your tricks will not work on me again, they can only delay the inevitable, Niji said, dropping back into a defensive stance. We'll see, the small platoon yelled, charging forward. Several clones began to engage Niji hand to hand while the original and 2 others started to launch kunai and shuriken from a safe distance. Niji quickly dispatched a clone with a strike to the chest, pulling another in front of himself to shield against the wave of shuriken. Pumping chakra to his legs, Neji increased his speed, striking at the clones, or using them as human shields. Two Narutos sent kunai aimed at Neji's head that he sidestepped, plucked from their air and embedded in the chest of two clones. With the melee forces dispatched, Neji rushed the three remaining Narutos. Naruto jumped back as his two clones bought him some time to call on reinforcements. Another 10 Narutos formed a ring around Neji, who had just tossed aside the last of the original squad, dispelling it. "Is this all you are capable of?" Neji sneered. "It will take more than this to defeat me." "You underestimated me before," one Naruto yelled. "Now you're gonna pay," another shouted. The ring of Narutos collapsed on their target, who moved gracefully through the storm, ducking, dodging and striking at everything around him. A swift elbow to the face of one Naruto, followed by a puff of smoke, a palm strike to the chest of another, and another cloud of smoke. Neji sent a swift finger strike aimed for a lung, which the Naruto just barely dodged, taking the hit to the shoulder instead. This Naruto fell backwards and rolled away, which Neji saw immediately. "That's the real one," Neji thought, dashing for his target. The clones, realizing that Neji had found the real Naruto, tried desperately to intercept the Hyuga. Neji struck one in the throat, using his body as a springboard over the others. Naruto was favoring his shoulder and trying to get to his feet, making hand seals while backpedaling. Neji caught him just as he regained his footing, striking him in the chest with two outstretched fingers. To the uneducated, it would seem as if the strike had barely grazed him, but the mouthful of blood Naruto coughed up would say otherwise. "I caught you," Neji sneered triumphantly. "No," Naruto said, chuckling, "I caught you." The Naruto before Neji dispelled with the Hyuga, turning to see the remaining Narutos descending upon him, kunai drawn and closing fast. Behind them he could see the real Naruto flexing his shoulder. He used a substitution jutsu with one of his clones, Neji thought, dodging a kunai strike. The motion caused Neji to lose his balance as the clones continued their relentless assault. Neji was now backpedaling, blocking kunai blows that seemed to be coming from everywhere. Pivoting his foot, he began to spin, releasing chakra from all the points on his body. "Kaiten," Neji called out, sending clone and kunai crashing to the ground in a heap around him. A murmur went up and down the Hyuga section after seeing a branch member use a secret main house technique. Hiashi cast an eye on Goru and Jiro, who appeared just as shocked as everyone else. At least they appeared to be. Naruto watched as a dome of chakra enveloped Neji, scattering his clones to the dirt. Knowing he had to press the attack, he summoned 20 more clones that encircled Neji just beyond the reach of his new technique. "You have forced me to reveal my ultimate defense, Uzumaki," Neji said, glaring at the army swarming around him, "but in doing so I have revealed your undoing. This technique is what shall seal your fate." Says the man surrounded and outnumbered, the Narutos taunted back, "Defend yourself from this." The blonde army took to the air, pulling out 2 fists of shuriken apiece and launching them en masse. Neji again pivoted and released chakra just as the rain of steel descended upon him. Inside the dome, time seemed to slow as Neji began to pluck the shuriken from the air and fire them back at his attackers. The hail of weapons exploded from the dome, causing the clones to erupt in a cloud of smoke and the real Naruto to erupt in a spray of blood. Naruto crashed to the ground, several shuriken embedded in his arms, legs, and one cutting deep in his side. Painfully he began to extract them as he struggled to his feet. Neji had cancelled his technique, visible panting as it had taken quite a bit of chakra to maintain his defense for so long. "Funny, I was thinking the exact same thing," Naruto said, standing. "Why do you continue to defy what is inevitable?" Neji asked, amused. "I made a promise," Naruto said, clenching his fists for her. "I see," Neji said, smirking. "A failure wishing to avenge a failure, how depressing." All around him, Neji could feel the anger radiating from various sections of the arena, none greater than the space occupied by his opponent. Anger flashed across Naruto's face as he charged forward in a blind rage, swinging heavy blows that were easily batted aside by Neji, who sidestepped a wide right hook, countering with a swift palm strike that sent Naruto stumbling back. "Your anger has let you become careless," Neji said, shifting into a new stance. "That was your final mistake." Hiashi watched as Neji spread his arms open, palms up, one arm in front, the other back at a 45-degree angle. Hiashi knew the stance well and again shot a glance at Goru and Jiro, who did not seem surprised at all that Neji had knowledge of such a technique. "It seems our secrets are not as well kept as we once believed," Hiashi thought grimly. 8 trigrams 64 palms, Neji cried out, landing hit after hit to Naruto's chakra network. 2 palms. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. 64 palms, Neji shouted, sending Naruto tumbling back into the dust. Naruto landed face down in a heap, the air knocked from his lungs and every muscle in his body crying out in agony. "This match is over, Proctor," Neji sneered, deactivating his Byakugan. Genma looked over at the struggling form of the blonde genin and could hardly disagree. He was about to award the match when a shaky voice called out, No, I'm not done yet, Naruto said, struggling to one knee. I have blocked all of your chakra points, Neji said, shaking his head. You will find it difficult to breathe, let alone stand. Face me, coward, Naruto said, coughing. Neji flashed forward, grabbing Naruto by the throat and hoisting him up, Naruto's hand gripping his arm to prevent him from choking. You cannot win this match, Neji said, hardening his gaze. Surrender or suffer the consequences. All I need is a little chakra, just a little to my hand, Naruto thought, trying to remain standing. It was faint, but Naruto could feel just a little chakra enter his free hand, no doubt a small gift from his tenant. Instantly, Naruto pulled a kunai from his pouch and made a move for Neji's kidney. Neji saw the blade immediately, grabbing Naruto's wrist, causing him to drop the kunai in the dirt. I'm impressed that you are still able to move even after my attack, but I am done playing with you, Neji said, tightening his grip on Naruto's wrist. Besides, it will take more than a kunai strike. Even an academy student could block to stop me. In that case, Naruto said, grinning, I'll have to use Plan B. Confusion flashed across Neji's face as Naruto tightened his grip on the arm holding him by the neck. It was then the strange sizzling sound was heard and Neji looked down to see the handle of Naruto's kunai wrapped in an explosive tag. Neji's eyes widened as he tried to jump away, only for Naruto to hold him in place. I always keep my promises, Naruto whispered to him. Boom. Chapter 8, Dogs of War. Tenten turned quickly, blocking a kunai strike with her staff, whirling and bringing the hardwood across the neck of the sound ninja, earning the sickening crunch of shattering vertebrate. She caught Ino out of the corner of her eye, sending her opponent over the railing to the unforgiving arena floor below with a swift kick to the jaw. She saw a guy blur past, collapsing the lungs of a sound jonin with a hard kick, announcing to Kakashi that it was his 22nd enemy Nin, and asking how his eternal rival was faring. I cannot believe he is actually trying to have one of his stupid contests in the middle of this, both Kakashi and Tenten thought, sighing. Tenten saw a new platoon of sound ninja had just arrived and regrouped with Ino near the top of the concourse of the arena level, using the large pillars as cover. Where the hell are these guys coming from? Ino asked, catching her breath. I don't know, Tenten said, unsealing a sickle and chain from her scrolls. It doesn't seem like they're going to stop anytime soon. I think this new group is coming from somewhere else, she said, peeking around the pillar. They weren't with the group that was hidden in the crowd. This is bad, Ino said, also taking a look. If these guys are bringing in reinforcements, then that must mean they found a way around the village's outer defenses. So what should we do? Tenten asked, launching a kunai into the skull of a sound chunin unlucky enough to have his back to her. Ino looked from Tenten to the dead ninja and back before grinning. What? Tenten asked, quirking an eyebrow. I just got an idea, Ino said, making hand seals. An idea? Tenten asked, a little creeped out by the feral grin on her blonde friend's face. Invisible shroud jutsu, Ino cried out, encasing both girls in a shimmering dome of chakra. What did you just do? Tenten asked. I just made us invisible, Ino said smugly. As long as I can hold it, the genjutsu will make it seem as if we aren't even here. And if they can't see us standing here talking, they certainly won't see you picking them off with kunai. Realization dawned and Tenten's face immediately lit up. Oh, I have something better, Tenten squealed happily, unsealing a bow and 3 quivers of arrows. That was the most girlish sound I've ever heard you make, and it's because you get to use your bow and arrows, Ino said, shaking her head. Why am I not surprised? Just watch our backs while I get in a little target practice, Tenten huffed, lining up her shot and letting it fly. Kurenai in the meantime had just finished a sequence of hand seals when her target was struck in the temple by an arrow, dropping him in a heap. Looking around, she saw no one at first, but then sensed the ripple of a genjutsu shroud. It was faint, and if one wasn't a genjutsu master such as herself, it would be almost undetectable. That must be the invisibility technique I taught Ino, Kurenai thought, smiling, and if that is Ino, then that arrow must belong to Tenten. Kurenai let out a sigh of relief as she had momentarily lost the two during the battle. It was good to know they were at least together, and by the looks of it had a pretty good plan. She just hoped that Kiba and Sakura were okay as well. Kakashi had sent them to back up Sasuke, and they had left the arena chasing after the 3 sand genin. Kurenai shook her head of any worry. All 3 were strong and Sakura was a smart girl, they would be fine. Focusing again on the battle around her, Kurenai walked into a more open area, hopefully to draw the attention of some new targets for her sniper. With Sasuke, Sakura and Kiba. The 3 genin were flying through the trees, Kiba and Akamaru in front, tracking the scents of their targets, Sasuke and Sakura right behind. Sakura's head was spinning as she tried to piece together the madness that had led them on this chase to begin with. Flashback. The explosive tag erupted, kicking up a cloud of dirt and smoke, obscuring the arena floor and the 2 genin who were caught in the blast. A wave of panicked cries echoed across the arena, none louder than from a young pink-haired kunoichi. Naruto, Sakura screamed, shooting up from her seat, those around her staring in shock at what Naruto had just done. Ino and Tenten were both speechless, with Kiba and Kurenai looking on with the same solemn expression on their faces. Kakashi seemed to be calmly observing, but if you were to look again, you would see his headband was up and a Sharingan eye desperately searching for signs of life through the haze. The smoke cleared to reveal Genma checking on the condition of both boys and frantically waving for the medics. Both appeared to be unconscious, covered in soot and blood, blackened from the fire of the explosion. Sakura hid her face in Ino's shoulder, trying desperately not to cry as Ino tried her best to console her friend. Sakura stole one more glance at the arena floor, hoping to see Naruto getting to his feet when a white feather floated into view. The first feather was followed by a cascade of feathers as a feeling of calm began to overtake her. Sakura's eyes widened as she realized what was happening and placed her hands in a tiger's seal. Release, Sakura called out, dispelling the genjutsu. Looking around, she saw the others had dispelled the genjutsu as well, with the exception of Choji, Akamaru, and Kiba. All three were slumped in their seats and asleep. Sakura, Ino, do me a favor and wake the boys, Kurenai said, standing. Sakura and Ino channeled chakra into the boys and dog, breaking the genjutsu, allowing them to slowly come to. What the hell is going on? Kiba asked, regaining his focus. Before anyone could answer, a small explosion rocked the Kage's private box, covering the area in smoke. Sakura watched as the previously hidden Umbu swooped over the arena towards the explosion. From the smoke, several shadowy figures emerged and fled to the roof of the arena, 2 landing in the center and 4 kneeling at each corner of the roof. Sakura could see that the 2 standing in the middle of the roof were the Hokage, being held with a kunai to his throat by the Kazekage. She could see the other 4 flashing through hand seals, slamming their hands on the roof tiles with 4 walls of purple light encompassing the area. What is that, Kakashi-sensei? That is a barrier jutsu, Sakura, Kakashi said, observing the ANBU movements, probably meant to keep the ANBU from aiding the Hokage. Akamaru's barking brought Sakura's attention to the squad of sound ninja that had just arrived, flanking a lone ANBU and staring down Kakashi and Kurenai. Both sides eyed each other carefully, an anxious silence filling the air. Naruto, someone shouted, piercing the heavy quiet, Sakura thinking it almost sounded like Sasuke. Sakura's eyes turned to the arena floor to see Gaara pick Naruto up off the dirt with his sand and leap up and over the arena walls. Genma tried to stop him, but was blocked first by a wall of sand and then by Gaara's Jonin-sensei. The other 2 sand genin landed next to their sensei and after receiving some orders chased after Gaara. Sasuke jumped down to the arena floor and spoke with Genma before also giving chase, Genma preventing the sand jonin from interfering. Instinctively, Sakura made a move to follow, which caught the eye of the sound ninja who charged forward. Sakura saw the movement from the corner of her eye and prepared to block the strike, when Kakashi blurred in front of her. 2 sound nin fell dead, kunai sticking from their temples, before they even hit the ground. The rest of the squad hesitated for a moment before regrouping and descending on the masked leaf jonin in force. Dynamic entry, a familiar voice called out as a blur of green sailed into view, delivering a devastating kick to the heads of 2 sound nin, smashing their skulls and sending their bodies crashing into the other sound ninja. Have no fear, Kakashi, Konoha's green beast has arrived to provide you with backup, Guy shouted, giving a thumbs up. Guy-sensei wasn't supposed to be coming with you, Tenten asked, unsealing some kunai. Is he alright? We were walking in when the explosion went off. I told Lee to stay with the guards at the doors and rushed in to investigate. The guards may have their hands full in a minute, Kakashi said, watching more sound ninja arrive. Choji, Kakashi shouted, catching the young Akimichi's attention, go finally keep him out of harm's way until this is over. Right, Choji enthusiastically shouted before heading off. Be careful, Ino shouted after him. Thank you, Kakashi, Guy said, taking his place by his rival and friend. Kakashi merely nodded, not taking his eyes off the platoon of sound ninja that had descended on the stands. Sakura, Kiba, I have a mission for you two as well, Kakashi said sternly. This is an A-rank mission. You are to catch up with Sasuke and rescue Naruto from the Sand Ninja. Kiba, you and Akamaru will track Sasuke and then track Naruto. Sakura, you are the support for the team. Once you reach Sasuke, he is in command. Kiba looked as if he were about to protest when he was cut off by Kurenai. No buts, Kiba, Kurenai scolded. Now is not the time for egos. You have your orders. We'll clear the way and then you're on your own. Yes, sensei, Kiba said, turning to Sakura. Let's go. The 3 jonin leaped forward, scattering the sound nin as Sakura, Kiba and Akamaru rushed around and over the arena wall where the others had disappeared before. Flashback end. They're just up ahead, Kiba yelled behind, snapping Sakura from her thoughts. Sasuke said nothing as he pushed more chakra into his legs, trying to go faster. Sakura did as well when she heard Akamaru give out a strange whine. Yeah, I smell them too, buddy, Kiba said, sniffing the air. What is it? Sasuke asked. We're being followed by enemy ninja. 8, maybe 9, they're about 2 miles back and closing fast, Kiba said, slowing down. What are you doing? Sasuke snapped. We can't outrun them. We can make a stand here and ambush them. If we catch them by surprise, we can take them out, Kiba growled. If we stop, we'll lose the Sand Ninja and we'll lose Naruto, Sasuke said, grabbing Kiba's arm. We keep moving and have the enemy come up behind us, we'll be killed, Kiba shouted, pulling his arm free. Sakura knew that had to catch up to the Sand Genin. Naruto was probably hurt from his match and alone at the mercy of that lunatic Gaara. But now Sakura could sense the chakra of the enemy squad that was chasing them, and at best they had 10 minutes before they were overtaken. One of them could act as a decoy and lead the enemy away, but Kiba was needed to track the Sand Nin and Sasuke's power was needed to fight Gaara and the others. That only left one other choice. Sakura stopped leaping, standing on a large tree branch. Sensing the sudden stop, Kiba and Sasuke also came to halt, Sasuke turning to look at his teammate. Sakura, what are you doing? We have to keep. I'll stay behind and stall the squad chasing us, Sakura said, pulling kunai and wire from her pouch. I'll have about 10 minutes before they get here. I can set up a trap or two and use genjutsu to lead them away from you. You can't face them alone, Sasuke said, wide-eyed in shock. You'll be killed, Sakura finished, slightly smirking. I'm glad you're concerned, Sasuke, but I don't plan on dying. I never said I was going to fight them, I'll just have them chase after my illusions. I'll catch up before you know it, Sakura said, waving the two off. Sakura. Hurry, Sasuke, Sakura said, turning around. Naruto needs your help. Sasuke composed himself, his stoic mask falling back into place. I expect you to catch up with us, Sakura, Sasuke said, trying not to let his voice waver. Sakura did not turn around but offered a thumbs up in response. Kick their asses, Sakura, Kiba yelled out, Akamaru barking in agreement as they turned with Sasuke and continued on. They never saw the lone tear streak down her face as she glanced back to see their retreating forms. Goodbye, she said, wiping the tear away. With the Hyuga clan. The fighting had broken out over all corners of the arena. Those of the Hyuga clan who had dispelled the genjutsu were now joining the regular forces and repelling the enemy. Hiashi had gone off to aid elsewhere in the village, leaving Ko and Yuko to take Hanabi back to the Hyuga compound to keep her safe. Goru and Jiro watched as Hiashi departed, followed closely by Hanabi and her entourage. That kyuubi brat may have ruined our plans, but this madness is a blessing in disguise, Goru said, turning to Jiro. What do you have in mind, uncle? Jiro asked. I want you to follow the princess and eliminate her, Goru said coldly. I will follow Hiashi and make sure that his battle with the enemy is ill-fated. Uncle, if we are caught, surely they will execute us then and there, Jiro said nervously. We will make it seem as if the enemy is responsible. In the chaos no one will be able to tell, and once the clan head and heir are disposed of, the main family will fall into disarray. Hiashi is powerful and feared, he alone is the strength of the main family. Once he is gone, the weakness of the main family will be exposed and the clan council will be forced to recognize our strength. Jiro hesitated before nodding in agreement and heading off. Goru watched as a main family member fell to a group of sound ninja before smiling and chasing after Hiashi. With the Hokage and Orochimaru, Sarutobi stood still, the cold steel pressed against his throat keeping him at bay. Glancing around, he saw that both he and the Kazekage were trapped inside a barrier. More appropriately, he was trapped and was being held hostage. The ANBU had taken up a perimeter around them, but had no luck in breaking the barrier from their side. He needed to buy time so he could think of a way out of this, so he began to stall. Why have you betrayed us, Lord Kazekage? Sarutobi said, shifting slightly. It is only betrayal if we were loyal to you in the beginning, the Kazekage said, snickering. A war will solve nothing, Lord Kazekage. We can still find peace without bloodshed, Sarutobi pleaded. Peace? No, my dear Hokage, peace is a temporary solution. I seek a much more permanent way through annihilation, the Kazekage sneered. Peace is for old foolish men who should have retired years ago, Sarutobi-sensei. The third's eyes widened, turning to look the man who held him in the eye. Orochimaru, Sarutobi said sadly. Sensei, a voice cried out, catching the attention of both men. Orochimaru smirked behind his mask as he saw Jiraiya standing outside the barrier, useless as always. I'm afraid Sensei is a little busy at the moment, you old fool, Orochimaru said, no longer disguising his voice. That voice? Jiraiya blinked in shock. Orochimaru? Pulling off his mask of flesh, Orochimaru smirked at the shocked look on his former teammate's face. It has been some time, has it not, Jiraiya? Orochimaru laughed. I see you still arrived too late to save those closest to you. First Minato and now Sensei, Orochimaru sneered. We're running out of people quickly, are we not? Jiraiya held his anger in check as he looked for a way around the barrier. Maybe I can break through it with brute force, Jiraiya thought, gather chakra to his hand. The ANBU present looked on in awe as a swirling ball of chakra formed in Jiraiya's hand. Rasengan, Jiraiya called out, smashing his attack against the barrier in a flash of light. The explosion sent Jiraiya flying back with him, just barely able to regain his footing, the sound of Orochimaru's twisted laughter echoing across the rooftops. I had forgotten how amusing you can be, Jiraiya, Orochimaru said, wiping a tear from his eye. Jiraiya looked as if he was about to try again when Sarutobi's voice rang out. Jiraiya, stop. Jiraiya did as he was told, allowing the Rasengan in his hand to dissipate. Do not fall for his goading, Jiraiya, Sarutobi said sternly. The village needs you to protect it from Orochimaru's forces. But sensei. No, Jiraiya, the life of the village always comes before the life of the Hokage. I must atone for my mistakes here and now, but I cannot ask the village to pay for them as well. A touching sentiment, sensei, Orochimaru said mockingly. I think I will let you watch your village burn before killing you. Sarutobi said nothing, looking at Jiraiya and mouthing the word go. Jiraiya nodded in understanding before vanishing in a puff of smoke. Be safe, old man, Jiraiya thought. Arena floor. The sounds of battle could be heard all around him. His vision was still blurry, and the one thing his mind could register was pain. It coursed through his whole body as if it was on fire. Slowly his memory returned. He had his opponent crushed, at his mercy, and then an explosion. He was thrown back, his skin burning and shrapnel gouging into his flesh. Neji tried to move only to find that such actions were impossible. His only reward was more pain as he closed his eyes, trying to concentrate on anything else except the agony that rippled over his skin. He tried steadying his breathing only to cough up blood, the bitter metallic taste overriding his senses. Opening his eyes again, he managed to look down on his arm and flinched in horror. The skin was either peeled back, leaving a bright mass of flesh, or blackened over with burned bloody residue. He then became aware of a sharp pain in his side. Angling his head, he saw what appeared to be a broken piece from a kunai sticking out just below his ribs. His eyes trailed upward and saw smoke billowing over the arena walls, cries of pain and the clang of steel against steel creating a hum in his ears. What is going on? Neji thought, his mind beginning to wander. He tried to sit up again, and once again found his body would not budge. However, he noticed that his movements did not result in mind-numbing agony, but more of a dull, almost non-existent pain. His eyes fluttered as a sense of calm and exhaustion began to overtake him. The sounds around him began to fade as the creeping darkness began to overtake him. Opening his eyes again, he was greeted by the sight of his father. I must be dreaming, Neji thought. His father once again had a sad smile on his face as he looked down on his son. Neji was about to say something when a hand reached out for him. Following the hand to its owner, he was greeted by Hinata as she smiled at him kindly. I do not need your help, Neji said, turning away. Hinata said nothing, but stretched her hand out once again, still smiling. Neji looked at her and then to his father, who placed his hand on Hinata's shoulder and beckoned him to take her hand. Neji sighed and once again tried to raise his arm to find that not only could he move, but the pain was gone. Grasping his hand, Hinata helped him to his feet and once again embraced him. Neji sighed but did not pull away, allowing Hinata to end the hug on her own. Grabbing his hand again, she began to walk towards the arena exit, his father at his side, his arm around his shoulder. And with his family, Neji Hyuga left this world. With Gaara. Gaara leaped from tree to tree, every few seconds looking back at his cargo. He could see that the burns and cuts across Naruto's face had healed already, and his heartbeat had gone from weak and faint to strong and steady once again. Once he was sure no one would interrupt, he would wait for him to awaken, and then he would prove his existence once and for all. An opponent like this had to be tested at full strength, and Gaara was trembling with eager anticipation. Very soon, Uzumaki, Gaara growled, your blood will make mother very, very happy. What if Naruto trained by Hiashi and Kyuubi for Chunin Exams? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.